A dozen or so minutes later, Mo Peng and Lao Li emerged. Through the half-open door, Wang Meiqi could be seen lying on the bed, her expression numb, as if she were dead. But neither Mo Peng nor Lao Li paid her any mind. The six of them rested briefly. They hadn't eaten dinner, all of them toughing it out. Mo Peng, of course, was unwilling to share his own food supplies, and Lao Li's group of 5 couldn't possibly have brought any food with them, so they just had to endure it. Once they took down Xiao Ran, they could finally have a hearty meal. They waited and waited until finally it was midnight. Move out, the 6 of them set off. Mo Peng didn't even lock the door. He wasn't worried at all about Wang Meiqi escaping, because he had made up his mind. He was going to take over Xiao Ran's villa. They reached the garage, flashlights leading the way, and soon arrived beneath the villa. Looking at the sealed iron door, Mo Peng sneered. Lao Li, you're up. No problem. Lao Li stepped forward and started fiddling with it. However, 10 minutes later, he was still at it. Lao Li, what's taking so long? Haven't you got it yet? Mo Peng and the other 4 were freezing their asses off. Lao Li was on the verge of tears. This is a top-of-the-line electronic lock. Damn it. How paranoid is this kid? Using such a high-grade lock, even for the basement? I need more time. Damn it, this weather is too cold. My hands are shaking so much. I can't even perform at half my usual skill. Mo Peng said impatiently. Give me a number. How much longer? 10, maybe 30 minutes, Lao Li said. This nearly made the other 5 lose it. It was freezing. They actually had to stay in this godforsaken place for another half hour? Damn it. Lao Li, did you spend all your energy on women? Someone cursed. We have a mission tonight, and you were still thinking about fooling around with women? Haven't you ever been with a woman before? They all started grumbling and cursing. They were a motley crew to begin with. If everything went smoothly, it would be fine, but the moment they hit a snag, they'd immediately start fighting amongst themselves. It wasn't impossible for them to just disband on the spot. Click. But just then the iron door actually opened. Lao Li, you did it. How come you just said at least 10 minutes, and now it's open? The group exclaimed happily, but Lao Li was completely baffled. I didn't open the door, he said. Huh. Then what happened? The 6 of them quickly stared at the doorway. Suddenly, a bright light shone at them. Holy crap, my eyes. The 6 men hurriedly backed away, simultaneously shining their own flashlights in that direction. Xiao Ran then appeared in their line of sight. But unlike them, who were holding things like kitchen knives, hammers, and screwdrivers, Xiao Ran was actually holding a water gun in his other hand. A water gun? Mo Peng and the other 5 laughed. You plan to squirt us with a water gun? The very next moment, Xiao Ran fired. Whoosh, 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 pellets of water shot out. They were fast, and they hurt like hell when they hit. Xiao Ran smirked. This was an electric-powered water gun, with force comparable to a high-pressure water jet, but concentrated into a single water pellet. The impact force was immense. But that wasn't even the worst part. The water pellets hit their faces, hands, and necks, and the 6 men immediately howled in excruciating, gut-wrenching pain. It's poisonous water, toxic ice pellets. The 6 finally realized what was happening, but it was too late. They had already collapsed to the ground from the intense burning pain, able only to wail. Xiao Ran didn't fire again. Instead, he waited. A full half hour passed before the 6 men's groans subsided a little, and Xiao Ran had even brought over a small stove, mainly to warm his own hands. But it was also because of this that Mo Peng and his men didn't freeze to death. Now listen to me, Xiao Ran said coolly. I have a job for you. If you do it, this instant ramen and water are yours. If you fail, or if you try to take them by force, you're welcome to try. Mo Peng neither refused nor agreed outright. Instead, he asked, what do you want us to do? There was no harm in asking, and in their current state, they needed time to recover anyway. Xiao Ran smiled. Go to apartment 302 in building 11. There are 4 people inside, an old couple and a brother-sister pair. I want each of you to take a turn with all 4 of them. Here, for condoms each. When you're done, bring back the used condoms to claim your reward. Holy crap, isn't that your ex-wife's family? Mo Peng and the others gasped, thinking to themselves, this Xiao Ran is truly vicious. But for them, was this task difficult? Lao Li could pick locks. They had their makeshift weapons ready. Subduing a family of 2 elderly people and 2 younger ones, with only 2 males in total, wouldn't be hard, would it? It was just doing it to the men. They were hesitant about that. So, should they try to take down Xiao Ran directly? Looking at the plastic crate beside Xiao Ran, piled high with instant noodles, meat jerky, and clean water, their eyes turned green with envy. In the end, everyone looked at Mo Peng. He used to be in a gang. When it came to being ruthless and a fighter, Mo Peng was definitely the top dog among them. Mo Peng pondered for a moment, then said, "All right, we'll take the job." The other 5 were puzzled, but Mo Peng winked at them, signaling them to stay calm and be patient. So, the 5 of them said nothing. Xiao Ran tossed out 3 boxes of condoms and chuckled. "If anyone can go for a few extra rounds, there's an additional reward. But don't seriously injure or kill any of them. I want to play with them slowly. You only have 1 day." So cruel. Taking turns with all 4 of them, regardless of gender. And that's just the appetizer? Just how much do you hate this family? However, they had heard some rumors that Jang Wan had cheated on him before their marriage, making Xiao Ran the unwitting fool who ended up with her. Thinking about it this way, they felt they could understand his actions. After all, if the same thing had happened to them, they might have been even more ruthless than Xiao Ran. The 6 men took the condoms, picked up their dropped weapons and tools, and started walking ahead, with Xiao Ran following behind, water gun in hand. Mo Peng then whispered, "That kid has the water gun. If we get hit by even one of those pellets, we'll lose all ability to resist. So, let's do what he says first. After we finish the job and go to trade the condoms for the reward, we'll naturally be able to get close to him. That's when we'll all attack together and take him down." As expected of Mo Peng, it was a good plan. "But, do we really have to do it with the men?" someone asked hesitantly. "Damn it, just close your eyes. Who cares if it's a man or a woman?" Mo Peng said viciously. The other 5 could only nod. But 4 rounds in 24 hours. That was a bit difficult. After all, none of them were young, virile lads anymore. Soon, they arrived at the door of apartment 302. Xiao Ran even thoughtfully tossed out a box of pills, saying, "Silver G, you know what it's for. If you're having trouble, take one." "Damn, you've really thought of everything." Mo Peng silently picked up the box of pills. Oli began to pick the lock. He was a true professional. Took him less than 30 seconds to get it open. As for why he couldn't open Xiao Ran's lock, that was because Xiao Ran had spent 80 million modifying it to be unbreakable. The requirement had been clear, reinforced, and tamper-proof. If a random locksmith could open that door in seconds, Xiao Ran would have hunted Jia Yingui down and killed him, even if it was hailing outside. As soon as the door swung open, 6 people charged inside. "Who's there?" "What are you doing?" "You're Mo Lousy. That's Oldie the locksmith. And you Zhang Wei." The 4 members of the Zhang family shouted out in shock, their cries quickly turning into terrified screams. Xiao Ran smiled faintly and turned to leave. That ex-wife's family. They could slowly start making up for all the hatred he carried. This wasn't the end. Far from it. Not unless someone from the Zhang family ended it themselves. But with their personalities? Even if there was only a sliver of a chance to survive, none of them would ever choose suicide, which meant he'd get to play with them a few more rounds. Xiao Ran returned home and sank into a deep, satisfying sleep. The leopard tried to jump on the bed to sleep with him, but Xiao Ran kicked it off, laughing and cursing. "Doesn't matter if you're male or female, you're not getting on my bed. Maybe when the fog clears, I'll see if I can find you a lady leopard." The leopard barked twice. Who knew if it was protesting or egging him on to hurry up and find a mate? The next morning, word spread quickly through the neighborhood. Something terrible had happened to the Zhang family. Last night, Mo Lousy had broken into their apartment with a gang of people. The entire Zhang family had been violated. Why did everyone say the entire family? Because all 4 members had screamed. Stopped for a bit, then screamed again. The whole thing made people's jaws drop. If they'd only gone after Jang Wan, well, she was young, fairly attractive. People could almost understand. But Lin Lin? She was practically ancient, and they still went after her? Disgusting. Even more twisted. They hadn't spared Zheng Yujun and his son either. Jesus, what kind of monsters were these people? Aunt Zhao from 402 said so. She didn't see it herself, but she definitely heard it. She blasted it all over the group chat and ran straight to the garage first thing in the morning to tell everyone she met. Was it terrifying? Absolutely. But did anyone stand up and say they'd bring justice to the Zhang family? Not a single soul. Everyone minded their own damn business. Sweep your own doorstep, as they say. Still, people started getting cautious. Floor leaders from every building began going door to door, trying to rally residents to band together. If something like what happened to the Zhangs went down again, maybe they could resist as a unit instead of being picked off one by one. Sure, that kind of plan might work for now. But give it a few days, when people get even hungrier and thirstier. Then folks would start eyeing their own building first. Better to target the familiar ones. You know how many live there. You're less likely to get ambushed by a pack of big guys when you break in. Pick the soft fruit, not the tough nuts. And the Zhang family? They became the sacrificial lamb. Did anyone feel sorry for them? Not a chance. Was there even one decent person in that household? Zheng Yujun and Lin Meiying were notorious. Everyone knew what they were like. Zheng Gang, classic scumbag, drinks, gambles, visits brothels. Never done an honest day's work in his life. As for Jang Wan, she used to have a decent rep, but that shattered over the past 3 months. First, news broke that she got pregnant before marriage, with another man's baby, no less. Try to trick a poor sucker into taking responsibility. And the bombshell? People said she was behind her own son's death. Why? For the insurance payout. If that was true, what kind of monster was she? So what happened to the Zhengs? That was karma. Around 10 a.m., Xiao Ran woke up, stretched luxuriously. Nothing like sleeping until you naturally wake up. He washed up and made breakfast. 1 serving for him, 1 for the leopard. The spread was so good it could make someone drool. Honestly, even Han Yun hadn't eaten this well. Huh, a woman you're just messing around with? She'd never beat a loyal pet. Just as he finished eating, Xiao Ran's phone buzzed with an alert. Someone was approaching. At first, he thought it might be Han Yun and her sister-in-law. But it wasn't. It was a woman he'd never seen before. The infrared camera caught a blurry black and white image. She looked pretty, but the details were unclear. She was alone. She seemed hesitant. Her hand was raised to knock, but she didn't do it right away. Her teeth were biting in her lower lip, clearly struggling with the decision. It took a full 5 minutes before she finally knocked. Click! The steel door opened instantly. She froze for a second, but once she felt the warm air from inside and saw the lights on, she stepped in. Click! The door shut automatically behind her. She flinched at the sound, visibly startled. Speak plainly, Xiao Ran said. Don't beat around the bush. I don't have time for games. He sized her up. Truth was, in this world everyone had time. No jobs to go to, no meetings to attend. But that wasn't the point. The woman bit her lip, then finally looked up at him and said, "See, can you spare me some food?" Xiao Ran chuckled. "And how do you know I've got food?" "I heard from others," she replied. "I'm really hungry and thirsty." That's why she'd come here, desperation. And clearly, she knew what it might cost her. That explained her hesitation at the door. Xiao Ran gave her a long look. Yeah, not bad. Not a perfect 10. Those were rare, but a solid 8. Way better than someone like Jang Wan. She looked about 20. Young. Her figure was hard to judge under all those thick winter clothes. Xiao Ran smiled. "What's your name?" "Zhong Lei," she answered quickly. "I live in Building 16, Unit 2201. I'm not the owner. I rent. I go to Sioux University, senior year." Xiao Ran asked, "Why don't you live in the dorms?" After all, the university had accommodations. Renting off campus cost money. The implied question, were you being kept by someone? Zhong Lei explained, "I didn't like the conditions in the dorms. My family's not short on money, so I rented a place nearby. I was supposed to graduate at the end of the month. But then disaster struck. And who could have seen that coming? Not just her. Nobody in the world expected this. She looked good enough, and Xiao Ran had no reason to turn away a gift-wrapped delicacy. Still, he said, "I've got some food and clean water left. But you understand what food means now, and what it'll cost you." "I understand," Zhong Lei nodded. Hesitant or not, she'd already made her choice. All right then. Xiao Ran went behind the screen, took out a few dishes and a bowl of rice, setting them down. He also prepared a bottle of purified water. Then he called Zhong Lei over. Seeing the table laden with food, Zhong Lei couldn't help but swallow hard. She was so hungry and thirsty. She walked over and sat down. She drank the water first. As the cool water soothed her parched, burning throat, she almost moaned in blissful relief. Then, she began to wolf down the food. But as she ate, she took off her jacket. "It's hot. It's so warm in here. You actually have electricity here, and heating?" She was utterly shocked. Then she looked at Xiao Ran with pleading eyes. "Can you let me stay here? You can do whatever you want of me." Having come in here, she really didn't want to leave. Xiao Ran naturally refused. Han Yun, who's better looking and has a better figure than you, isn't qualified to live here either. So, of course, you're even less qualified. Playing around was fine, but to truly become one of his women, she absolutely had to be a virgin. The lesson he learned from Jang Wan was painful enough. "Are you a virgin?" Xiao Ran asked lightly. Zhong Lei couldn't help but blush and shook her head. She'd had a boyfriend since her sophomore year of college, and they had even lived together. How could she still be a virgin? "But I've only ever had one boyfriend," she quickly added, trying to score points. "Does it make a difference?" Xiao Ran couldn't be bothered to waste time on this topic. "Hurry up and eat." Zhong Lei was inevitably disappointed, but she didn't dare disobey. She lowered her head and continued eating. Xiao Ran was quite satisfied, so he gave Zhong Lei 2 packs of instant noodles and 2 bottles of water as a reward. Normally, it was one of each. He was just about to tell Zhong Lei to leave when the security monitor beeped. Someone was here. Another woman. Xiao Ran smirked. Now that everyone knows he has supplies, are they all flocking here to sell themselves? Fine by me. If the goods are high quality, I'll take them. If not, forget it. I'm not greedy for quantity. I'm going for the premium route. Outside, the woman was just about to knock when the door suddenly opened. She was momentarily stunned and saw a young, beautiful woman walking out. The two women saw each other and instantly understood each other's purpose for being there. Immediately, they both felt quite awkward. Zhong Lei quickly hurried away. The other woman, meanwhile, stepped inside. She saw Xiao Ran emerging, wearing a bathrobe. She glanced at him, blushed involuntarily, and quickly lowered her head. Xiao Ran didn't mind and said, getting straight to the point, "Are you also here to make a trade?" The woman's face was a little pale, but she still nodded. Xiao Ran smiled. "Look up, let me see." Naturally, one had to inspect the goods before buying. The woman lifted her head. Her looks were about a 70 out of 100. Xiao Ran was somewhat disappointed. Actually, a 60 was already the passing mark for being considered beautiful, so a 70 was certainly above average. It was just that Xiao Ran's appetite had become pickier lately. Anything less than an 80 really wouldn't catch his eye. Just like Zhang Jingya. If she weren't currently paired with Han Yun, Xiao Ran really wouldn't want her on her own. After all, he had choices now. After his rebirth, his constitution had indeed greatly improved, surpassing 99% of people. But no matter how strong his constitution, could he really spend more than half of every day plowing the fields? "You can go back," Xiao Ran said, rejecting her. However, he still handed her a bottle of water and a pack of instant noodles. "So your trip wasn't entirely for nothing. This was about building a reputation. All the beautiful women in the residential complex who were confident in themselves could come. Even if they couldn't do business, they would at least get travel expenses." The woman's face paled at first, but her eyes lit up when she saw the food and water. She quickly accepted them. "Thank you, thank you." Xiao Ran showed the woman out. He believed word of this would spread quickly. "Beautiful ladies, if you can't survive, feel free to come find me." However, Han Yun is probably the prettiest, most charming, and has the best figure in the complex. Finding a second one like her would be too difficult, and she'd also have to be a virgin to be taken into his home and kept. Xiao Ran felt that for a long time, he might just have to remain unattached with only Baozi for company. Quality over quantity. What surprised Xiao Ran was that Han Yun and her sister-in-law hadn't come to find him today. It seemed Han Yun had been significantly affected. Her husband had first betrayed her, then died, and she was one of his killers. Although Lin Yue wouldn't have survived even without the few cuts she inflicted later, Han Yun obviously couldn't see it that way. Before yesterday, she had been a devoted wife willing to sell her body for her husband. Then, in an instant, she had turned into a vicious woman who dared to strike her husband with a knife. It would be strange if she wasn't emotionally turbulent. Xiao Ran smiled faintly. Whether Han Yun could emerge from the shadow in her heart had nothing to do with him. It was just that if she couldn't get over it, it would be a bit of a pity. Slowly, the sky darkened. Around 7 in the evening, Mo Peng and his group arrived. Bang, 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 they knocked on the door. "Go to the garage." Xiao Ran's voice came from a hidden speaker. So, Mo Peng and his 5 companions retreated from the passageway and went to the garage. Lin Yue's body hadn't been dealt with. If Xiao Ran didn't do it, no one else would. Due to the freezing weather, his corpse was frozen solid there. And because of this, although its state was rather gruesome, there was no stench. When Mo Peng's group of 6 saw it, they all frowned slightly. A dead body. Who would feel comfortable seeing that? They had come and gone in a hurry yesterday, and hadn't paid it much mind. But today they happened to retreat to this very spot, making all 6 of them silently curse their bad luck. "Mo Laosi, we're all waiting for your signal," Zhang Wei whispered. Mo Peng cursed inwardly, thinking, "Aren't you just trying to make me charge in first?" Oh well, he had initiated this, and if he took the lead in attacking, he was bound to get a larger share of the spoils. Like this villa, for instance. "All right," he nodded. Just then, a flashlight beam shone over, and Xiao Ran strode towards them. "Inspect the goods." Mo Peng took out a plastic bag and tossed it to Xiao Ran. Inside were 4 used condoms. As soon as Xiao Ran opened it to check, he and Mo Peng would charge forward immediately, and Zhang Wei and the others would rush in together. Could 6 grown men working together possibly fail to subdue one person? "Without that water gun, you're nothing." Xiao Ran smiled as the portal opened behind him. He lowered his head, pretending to check something, letting the flashlight beam fall to the ground. "Now, In a flash, Mo Peng lunged forward with a roar die, a signal for the others to attack together. Seeing Mo Peng rush ahead, the five with Zhang Guowei naturally followed, shouting as they charged at Xiao Ran. Then, one by one, they vanished. No sound, no trace. Xiao Ran scanned with his mind. Inside the alternate space now lay 6 lifelike corpses, their faces still twisted with ferocity, brutality, and just a hint of fear. So entering the space didn't kill them instantly. There was a momentary process. Brief, but still a process. Mo Peng and the others had planned to ambush him. But did he ever intend to spare any of them? These people had served their purpose, inflicting pain and humiliation on the Zhang family. Now that the goal was met, why keep them around? Xiao Ran grinned. With a thought, he dumped all the corpses out of the alternate space. It was meant for storing supplies. Having dead bodies mixed in, even if contamination wasn't technically an issue, still made him uneasy. He snapped photos of the 6 bodies with his phone, then returned to the villa. He sent the pictures to his ex-wife. No idea if Jang Wan's phone still had battery. Hopefully. There was no reply for a long while. Xiao Ran sighed. Probably dead. Forget it. No need to rub salt into old wounds. He went to take a shower, planning to sleep afterward. But when he picked up his phone again, he was surprised. Jang Wan had replied. You killed those 6 bastards? She was clearly shaken, using a flood of exclamation marks. Xiao Ran smiled and texted back. Yeah. Xiao Ran, thank you. I knew you still cared about me. Jang Wan was overwhelmed, nearly in tears. Even after being assaulted by those 6 monsters, if it meant reigniting Xiao Ran's protective instincts, then she considered it a win. She could live in a big villa, eat gourmet meals, and never worry again. She called him right away. Xiao Ran, I'm coming over right now, okay? Did you misunderstand something? Xiao Ran chuckled. I did kill Mo Peng and the others. But they came to your place because I forced them to. Told them if they didn't, I'd kill them myself. So they went, desperate to live, and that's why they didn't spare even your father and brother. You think they were into that kind of thing just for fun? If I do evil, I make sure people know my name. I want you to hate me, to regret everything. Jang Wan was stunned. Her phone slipped from her hand and hit the floor with a loud smack. You jinx! You damn curse on this family! Roared Jung Yujun. She had made a fatal mistake. She had the call on speaker. Too excited, too confident that Xiao Ran had killed those men out of love for her, she had rushed to boast in front of her parents and brother, showing off her supposed triumph. I'll be the lady of the villa now. You all want in? Better start sucking up to me. But her joy turned to horror. The 6 rapists? Sent by Xiao Ran himself. Zheng Yujun, in his 60s, had suffered unspeakable humiliation, defiled one after another by 6 men. And all of it because of Xiao Ran. And why did Xiao Ran go so far to destroy the Zhang family? Because of Jang Wan. She had cheated first. No, she had gotten pregnant and tricked Xiao Ran into being the scapegoat. How could he not hate them? So it all came back to Jang Wan. If not for her, their family wouldn't have endured such torment. They had coddled her, catered to her every whim just to get compensation money. But now, it was the 6th day since the apocalypse began. Money? Worthless. 99% of people had realized by now, old wealth meant nothing. Just paper and empty numbers. Food and water. Those were the real treasures. So why would they keep valuing Jang Wan? Especially after that. He'd been violated because of her. Zheng Yujun snapped. He ripped off his slipper and started beating Jang Wan with it. She tried to dodge, but Zheng Gang and Lin Lin joined in. Soon, she was pinned and beaten mercilessly. Her face swelled grotesquely, covered in blood. Only then did Zheng Yujun pick up the fallen phone and speak in a groveling tone. Xiao Ran, we'll send Jang Wan to you. How about a case of instant noodles and a case of water in exchange? Jang Wan lay on the floor, groaning in agony, unable to speak. Her own father had just sold her out. But strangely, she wasn't even surprised. After being kicked out of the house twice before, she should have known. Brother-in-law, just take her back, will ya? Zheng Gang chimed in, rubbing his backside. The pain was sharp, burning. Definitely torn. Xiao Ran would never agree. He wanted nothing less than this family's total collapse. Turn them against each other. Watch them all die in misery. Ha ha ha. He laughed and hung up. Jang Wan, feels good to get stabbed in the back by your own family, doesn't it? Zheng Yujun glared at her. The more he looked, the angrier he got. Dad, I'm starving. Zheng Gang groaned. Mo Peng and the others hadn't just violated them. They had cleaned out the last bits of food and water. They hadn't eaten in over a day. Zheng Yojuan's gaze turned cold. Tie this bitch up. Zheng Gang hesitated. Dad, You're not thinking of eating her, are you? Jang Wan shuddered, staring at her father in disbelief. No, he wouldn't, right? Zheng Yujun waved him off. Just do it. Why ask so many damn questions? Oh, Zheng Gang fetched some rope. The two men worked together to tie her up. Even after starving for a day, they were still stronger than Jang Wan, and she was just as weak from hunger. Let's go. We'll ask around. See if anyone wants to turn with your sister. 1 round, 1 pack of noodles, or 2 ounces of rice, or a bottle of water. Zheng Yujun finally said it. You've lost your mind. Lin Ming was horrified. He shot her a glare. Then you go get us food and water. She opened her mouth, but closed it again. Zheng Gang was beyond starving. Who cared if she was his sister? He immediately said, Dad, you take the odd floors. I'll take the even ones. Good. Zheng Wan no longer cried. Her face had gone blank. True despair wasn't tears. It was silence. Li Zhonglin was under immense pressure. It was only getting worse. When the cataclysm first struck, he'd spun a tale about a relative in a high government position. He claimed the government had established a shelter, admitting only a select few to ride out the disaster. And he, Li Zhonglin, conveniently held 3 of those coveted spots. A few people actually bought it. They not only did his bidding and showered him with flattery, but also handed over all their possessions. There weren't many fools, just 9 in total, 2 of whom were women. Of course, he'd slept with them. They were rather plain, but he wasn't exactly a VIP. Free women, available for him to use as he pleased. How could he not be thrilled? But as the days dragged on, food and fresh water dwindled. The grand promises he made remained unfulfilled, and the 9 were growing anxious. Every day, they'd ask when the government vehicles were coming to pick them up. He was running out of lies. If they discovered he was a fraud, these 9 desperate, furious people would undoubtedly tear him limb from limb. In these chaotic times, was murder really so shocking? He had to think of something, or his life wouldn't be worth a damn. He gathered the 9 of them. I just heard from my cousin, Li Zhonglin began. He said the fog outside is too thick, the military can't move yet. So, the convoy to take us out will be delayed a few more days. He'd used this excuse several times, and impatient expressions flickered across their faces. Li Zhonglin quickly added, Our food is running low. We need to find a way to survive. My cousin said these are special times, and special times call for special measures. I told my cousin about what's been happening in our complex recently. He suggested we take down Xiao Ran. This man has severe antisocial tendencies. In these critical times, he poses a massive threat to society. He must be stopped. My cousin said that in these extraordinary times, after we deal with Xiao Ran, we can appropriate his supplies. Instantly, a flicker of interest lit up several faces. Why had they believed Li Zhonglin so readily? Wasn't it simply because they wanted to live? And why were they so anxious now? Fear of starvation, thirst, freezing to death. It all boiled down to one thing, survival. If they took down Xiao Ran and seized the supplies, they could last a little longer until the government rescue arrived. They weren't necessarily stupid. In desperation, people cling to any sliver of hope, no matter how illusory. Besides, Li Zhonglin understood human nature. By attributing the order to his cousin, a supposed government official, taking Xiao Ran and his supplies was transformed into a righteous act. They had their just cause, and now they were an army of justice. Yeah, that Xiao Ran is a terrible person, flaunting his wealth in the group chat, but not sharing any of it. He even killed Lin Yue in cold blood. He's a criminal. Taking him down is for the good of the people. The 9 of them chimed in, each one filled with righteous indignation, effectively brainwashing themselves. Li Zhonglin seized the moment. Everyone, grab your weapons. Shouting, Rueifan, he addressed the 2 women. You 2 knock on his door. That Xiao Ran is a notorious lecher. Word is, you can get food and water just for sleeping with him. So act a little seductive. The moment he opens the door, we'll jump him. No problem. The only 2 women in the group of 10 replied, patting their chests confidently. Move out. Li Zhonglin waved his arm, looking every bit the confident leader. In reality, he was just a salesman with a silver tongue. He'd never imagined he could dupe 9 people into following his orders, especially not for murder and robbery. This wasn't a group dinner outing. His leadership, it seemed, was proving quite potent. They reached the garage, using a flashlight to cut through the darkness. Since the power outage, the garage was pitch black even in daylight. Without a flashlight, you couldn't see a thing. At night, it was even worse. Even the entrance was a void of absolute darkness. The 10 of them shared a single flashlight, so those behind had to cling to the person in front to navigate. Finally, they arrived beneath the villa. Shouting, Rueifan, You're up, Li Zhonglin said to the two women. Then, to the others, let's find a spot to hide. He swept the flashlight beam around, searching. Honestly, it was so dark, did they even need a hiding spot? Old habits died hard, he supposed. The apocalypse had only begun 6 days ago. Not everyone could adapt instantly. Li Zhonglin started. Holy shit, what did he see? Between two cars, a group of figures stood or squatted. At least 10 of them. Were they also here to ambush Xiao Ran? They'd have to sort out the loot distribution first, to avoid a fight later. He forced a smile. Are you folks also here to rid the people of a menace? How about we decide on the split before we get started? He waved, signaling his followers to approach. The division had to be clear, or the two groups would undoubtedly end up fighting to the death. Our numbers are about the same, Li Zhonglin said. So whatever supplies we get, how about a 50-50 split? The figures opposite them remained silent. This was too much. Not only was Li Zhonglin fuming, but his 9 followers were also visibly annoyed. Even if they weren't happy with the proposed split, they could at least say something. Li Zhonglin frowned. Friends, I believe my offer is quite sincere. Even if you're not satisfied, we can discuss it. Why the complete silence? He had moved closer now, the flashlight beam sweeping towards them. Oh my god! In that instant, Li Zhonglin and his 9 followers were so shocked their minds reeled. It wasn't a group of people ambushing them at all. They were clearly corpses. Several had obvious fatal wounds, bloody holes in their foreheads or chests. One had his throat slit, his face hacked beyond recognition. All 10 of them, Li Zhonglin included, collapsed onto their backsides, utterly terrified. The two women wet themselves on the spot, a warm, damp patch instantly spreading across their pants. No wonder these ambushers had shown such fortitude, waiting silently in the freezing cold. They were already dead. Would corpses feel the chill? But why were their bodies here? Wait a minute. This was right below Xiao Ran's villa. Could it be? The same horrifying thought dawned on all 10 of them. They began to tremble uncontrollably, cold sweat pouring down their backs. Maybe we should just forget about it, someone stammered, their voice shaking. What were they here for? To kill Xiao Ran and seize his supplies. Of course, killing was secondary. If Xiao Ran had just surrendered obediently, they wouldn't have necessarily had to kill him. After all, who but a natural-born psychopath actually enjoys killing? But now, the risk of killing Xiao Ran seemed too great. They could die themselves. Faced with this, who wouldn't want to back down? They were just ordinary people. After all, not professional killers. Li Zhonglin, however, hesitated. If they were treated like this, everyone would once again face the desperate situation of lacking food and water. He would become the target of everyone's anger. They would blame him for their predicament, and it wasn't impossible they'd beat him to death. So, they couldn't go back. To shift the blame, they had to take down Xiao Ran. What if few deaths matter? As long as he didn't die, it was fine. Once the arrow is loosed, there's no turning back. We must take down Xiao Ran today, or else we'll starve to death, die of thirst. Li Zhonglin said grimly. If we don't fight now, all that awaits us is death. Summon your courage. Xiao Ran is just one man. Do we need to be afraid of him? He shouted. You'd better be afraid of me. However, a voice came from not far away, followed by a blinding beam of light. Compared to it, the flashlight in their hands was like a mere star against the brilliant moon, utterly insignificant. The intense light seared their eyes, and all 10 of them squeezed their eyelids shut. It was just too blinding. Then, they suddenly realized. It was Xiao Ran. Hiss! What was he doing in the garage in the middle of the night instead of sleeping? Woof! Panther let out a low growl, its lips curling back in a ferocious snarl. The dog was highly sensitive to malice and possessed a strong sense of territory, having claimed the area beneath the villa as its own. In the dead of night, this group had snuck over, clearly with ill intentions. A dog that bites doesn't bark. Panther merely let out another low growl and silently stalked towards the 10 men, preparing a sneak attack. Xiao Ran didn't stop it. In such darkness, a dog was far more agile than a human. He wasn't worried Panther would get hurt. He had come out late at night, of course, to walk Panther. He hadn't expected to return from a stroll to find Li Zhonglin's group plotting against him. Interesting. In his previous life, Li Zhonglin had been beaten to death by deceived residents around this time. But this life was different. He had actually turned his attention to Xiao Ran. Xiao Ran smiled at this. A good way to pass the time and add a little excitement. Suddenly, someone screamed. Panther had launched its sneak attack, sinking its teeth firmly into the man's calf. The others, not knowing what had happened, were horrified. Crucially, Xiao Ran kept the intense light aimed at their eyes, preventing them from seeing anything clearly. They could only hear their companions' blood-curdling screams, which filled them with terror. Run! Faced with an unknown terror, they lost their nerve and turned to flee. Heh, you've already come all this way, and now you want to run? Xiao Ran pursued them. What he had to do was remarkably simple. Just open a spatial gate, and they would disappear one by one. Lin Lin felt his hair stand on end, enveloped by boundless terror. He heard the cries of his men dwindling. One moment they were screaming, the next, their voices cut off abruptly, and they vanished. These were living, breathing people. How could they just disappear into thin air without a sound? This terrified Lin Lin so much he felt his heart would burst. Intense fear robbed him of all strength, and he collapsed to the ground, wailing. He had completely lost his courage. Don't kill me. Don't kill me. I'll do anything. Please spare my life. Xiao Ran was a bit annoyed. By collapsing like that, the man had managed to avoid falling into the spatial gate Xiao Ran had opened in front of him. Panther, get him. He shone his flashlight on Lin Lin. Panther, like a true Black Panther, pounced, sinking its teeth into Lin Lin's throat. Ugh. Lin Lin struggled desperately, but Panther held its grip, refusing to let go. Lin Lin thrashed his limbs. The sensation of suffocation overwhelmed him, and he lost control of his bowels and bladder. Panther, come back, Xiao Ran said quickly. Even from a distance, and through several layers of clothing, he could smell the stench. He really didn't want to spend half an hour bathing Panther. Panther was very obedient, immediately releasing its hold and running back to Xiao Ran. Naturally, Xiao Ran wasn't going to let Lin Lin off. He went up and finished him with a bullet. You got off easy. Thwack! The bullet pierced Lin Lin's forehead, blossoming into a spray of blood. Xiao Ran dealt with the bodies, piling them all to one side so they wouldn't interfere with his evening dog walks. This also served as a deterrent. I'd like to see if anyone else dares to target me after these 10 bodies are added to the count. Xiao Ran returned home with Panther. Both man and dog took a bath. Then Xiao Ran went to sleep on the second floor, while Panther stayed on the first, fulfilling its duty as Xiao Ran's guard. The night passed. The 6th day of the apocalypse arrived. More news circulated in the residential complex today. First, there was the Jang family. That father and son duo from the Jang family were truly bizarre and heartless. They actually tied up Jang Wan, and anyone who wanted to use her could, for just one pack of instant noodles. However, because everyone was short on food and water, Jang Wan's business wasn't booming. Still, she had some customers, so at least the Jang family could survive for a little longer. In fact, quite a few women were already selling their bodies. But for a father and younger brother to personally force a decent woman into prostitution like the Zhangs did, that was definitely a first. Truly worthy of the Jang family name. They had once again lowered the bar for depravity. When Xiao Ran heard about it, he was stunned for a moment, then chuckled. This was indeed something the Jang family was capable of. Zhang Yujun was incredibly misogynistic, favoring sons over daughters. Back when Xiao Ran was still part of the Jang family, Zhang Yujun had exploited him relentlessly to subsidize his son. Why did this family of 6 all live together? Zhang Yujun would rather they live in cramped conditions than let his daughter and son-in-law move out. If they lived elsewhere, how could he control his daughter's family's assets? Now that Zhang Yujun was selling his daughter, it didn't surprise Xiao Ran in the slightest. In fact, if it hadn't been for him, Jang Wan might have been the first one slaughtered and eaten. For now, Jang Wan still had some value. The day her business completely dried up would likely be the day she was slaughtered and eaten. Xiao Ran sneered. No matter how miserable that bitch became, she couldn't arouse any sympathy in him. And if Jang Wan was eaten, who would be next? Lin Meiying? Zhang Yujun? Or Zhang Gang? Xiao Ran really felt like starting a betting pool. In the morning, he listened to music while brushing his teeth and washing his face. Was there anyone else in the entire complex who could still brush their teeth and wash their face now? He wondered. He decided to have breakfast after brushing his teeth. He had a bowl of tofu pudding and 2 fried dough sticks, while Panther had 2 meat buns. Before he could even decide what to do next, someone arrived from the basement. He checked the security monitor. TSK, Han Yun and Zhang Jingya had arrived. Xiao Ran opened the door and let the 2 women in. Zhang Jingya seemed a bit hesitant, but Han Yun was bold and confident, a smile on her pretty face. She asked, same as always, "Going to fill our bellies first." Xiao Ran gestured for them to enter. He had already prepared food. Once the 2 women started eating and drinking, he casually asked, "Why didn't you come yesterday?" Han Yun paused for a moment, then said, "I thought about a lot of things yesterday. I even considered suicide. But then I thought, dying for some worthless man just isn't worth it. She shook her head, a seductive and flirtatious look on her face. I'm this beautiful. Shouldn't I be enjoying the adoration of men? From now on, I'll never let any worthless man break my heart again. Indeed, extremes breed their opposites. It was a good thing this was the apocalypse. She could only trade her body to Xiao Ran for benefits. If it were before, TSK, even the leaders at her workplace would have fallen for her charms. Xiao Ran didn't care. He wasn't interested in Han Yun's affections anyway. An hour later, Han Yun and the other woman left. They were stealthy about it. Food was incredibly precious now and could also bring huge trouble, so they absolutely couldn't let anyone see them. Xiao Ran stretched. Well, since he had nothing better to do, he decided to work out. Building 2. Sufong was the manager of this building. After the cataclysm, he had been incredibly proactive in mediating disputes between neighbors and had earned considerable respect. One day, he invited 19 property owners to his home. Everyone, I don't think I need to elaborate on how dangerous our current situation is, Sufong said. He was a man of about 40, with a square face and eyes as sharp as a hawk's, as if he could see right through people. His voice was also incredibly compelling. With every sentence he spoke, the crowd couldn't help but nod. So we must save ourselves. And while this situation is dangerous, it's also nothing short of an opportunity, a chance. This made everyone look at him in confusion. Sufong smiled. Haven't you realized yet? This world has fallen into a state of anarchy. If you kill someone now, even if someone else's phone still has battery and a signal to call the police, will any police actually come? What does this mean? The law no longer exists. So, if we unite, couldn't we achieve something great? Sufong scanned the crowd. Seeing their eyes begin to gleam and their breathing quicken, he continued. First step, we dominate this entire residential complex, become its de facto rulers. Once we have enough manpower, we can plan to expand outwards. I believe this hailstorm can't last forever. And as soon as it stops, even if there's still heavy fog, with our knowledge of the complex's surroundings, we can absolutely go to nearby supermarkets and convenience stores to find supplies and invade other complexes. Don't you want to have many wives? To have a crowd of people at your beck and call? That was impossible before. But now, as long as you dare to dream it, dare to do it, dare to fight for it, you can make it happen. Those 19 men, their breathing heavy, were all stirred up, raising their arms and shouting. Sufong saw that the moment was ripe and said, "Who's willing to do this with me?" Me, me, me. All 19 men stood up, shouting their agreement. Sufong nodded. No longer needing to rile them up, he said slowly, "First step, we need to take down Xiao Ran. First, Xiao Ran has openly killed people in the complex, and not just one. Many already see him as a demon. So if we take him down, our prestige will be established instantly. Second, Xiao Ran should have a lot of supplies. After we take him down, we probably won't have to worry about going hungry for a while. Then, we can wait for the hailstorm to stop without worry." However, these words made the crowd hesitate. One man said, "Sufong, plenty of people have tried to go after Xiao Ran, but they all ended up dead. Some say there's a pile of at least 20 bodies at the entrance of his villa. Yeah, that guy's too brutal and terrifying. We'd better not provoke him." The others agreed, nodding one after another. Sufong smiled. No matter how strong Xiao Ran is, he's still just one person. With so many of us attacking together, you think we can't subdue him? Besides, we can use a plan. Everyone's eyes lit up. What plan? Sufong smiled, lowered his voice, and began to explain. After he finished, everyone's eyes shone, their previous hesitation and fear gone. If this couldn't subdue Xiao Ran, they truly wouldn't believe it. If there are no objections, then let's prepare to act. Sufong declared decisively. All right. Around noon, Xiao Ran was about to eat when his phone's alarm went off. He checked. Someone was in the basement. He thought it might be some young woman looking for help, but it turned out to be a man, around 50 years old, looking very honest and unassuming. Bang, bang, bang. The man started knocking on the door. Xiao Ran didn't go to open it. Instead, he directly broadcast his voice through his phone to a loudspeaker. What is it? The man stopped knocking, looked towards where the voice came from, and quickly said, I have some information to sell you. What information? How much do you want for it? Xiao Ran asked. The man said, someone's planning to deal with you. Give me a case of instant noodles and a case of water, and I'll tell you their specific plan. Xiao Ran watched him through the surveillance camera, pondered for a moment, then a smile touched the corner of his lips. I can give you 3 packs of instant noodles and 2 bottles of water every day, provided you're useful. The man thought for a moment, then nodded. All right, we can have a long-term cooperation. Go on then, Xiao Ran said. The man said, my name is Guharin. I'm the owner of Unit 1902 in Building 2. Today, Sufong, our building manager, called us over for a special meeting specifically to discuss how to kill you. What's the specific plan? Xiao Ran asked. Guharin didn't answer, instead saying, where's my food and water? Stand back a bit, Xiao Ran said. Guharin did as he was told, moving far away from the door, thinking to himself that this Xiao Ran was indeed careful and cautious. Clank, the iron door opened. Then 2 bottles of water and 3 packs of instant noodles appeared on the ground, but the next moment, the iron door slammed shut again. Too cautious. Guharin couldn't help but grumble inwardly. Then he called out to the door. Sufong and his group are planning a night raid tonight. They have a welder. Your iron door might not hold up against a welding torch, right? And there are 9 of them, all armed with knives. If they rush in, can you stop them? After a long silence, just when he thought Xiao Ran hadn't heard him, Xiao Ran's voice finally came through. Join them. Report their movements to me at all times. But Guharin refused, saying, what you've given me is just enough for the information I've shared. You want me to be your mole? That'll cost extra. Fine. The iron door opened again, and 2 more packs of instant noodles and another bottle of water appeared on the ground. Then Xiao Ran's voice sounded once more. Keep an eye on them. Report to me constantly, and I'll give you the same amount of food and water every day from now on. Deal. Guharin didn't haggle further. He picked up the instant noodles and purified water from the ground and hid them in his thick winter clothes. He turned and left, using his phone's flashlight to light the way. After walking quite a distance, several beams of light suddenly shone on him. He shone his light back and saw that the people opposite him were none other than Sufong and his men. However, Guharin wasn't scared in the slightest. Instead, a smile spread across his face. Well, did that kid take the bait? Sufong asked. Guharin took out the instant noodles and water. 4 packs of noodles, 3 bottles of water. What do you think? Did the kid believe me? Ha ha ha. Sufong and the others immediately burst into laughter. That kid would never guess that we don't have a traitor in our midst. We deliberately send him a mole. The power's out everywhere. Can a welding torch even work? Enough joking. Tell us about the situation in the villa. Guharin shook his head. That kid is incredibly cautious. He didn't let me in at all, but I got a look at the iron door. It's a good 20 centimeters thick and electrically controlled. Otherwise, just pushing it open would take a lot of effort. Even if there's power, cutting through it with a welding torch isn't realistic. This, everyone gasped. A 20-centimeter thick iron door. What kind of concept is that? Civil defense shelter doors are probably around that thick. Did he turn his house into a bomb shelter? Good thing we weren't planning to attack from the basement, or it would have been a waste of effort. Still, we couldn't get a clear idea of the villa's internal layout. No problem. Right now, that kid's attention is entirely on the basement. Tonight, we stick to the plan. Team 2 will feign an attack from the basement to draw Xiao Ran's attention, while Team 1 attacks from ground level. We'll catch him off guard. Once we breach the villa, he's just one person. How can he possibly stop us? Sufong boosted everyone's morale, and the crowd, all fired up, raised their arms and roared. Inside the villa, Xiao Ran chuckled. Would he believe Guharin? Of course not. Not a single word. Right now, he only trusted himself. He was just pretending to believe him, playing along with Guharin's act. After all, a monotonous life was too boring. He told me they'd attack from the basement, so the real attack must be from somewhere else. A feint in one direction to attack in another. Try to divert my attention, but would they really dare to attack from ground level? Xiao Ran thought about it. It was indeed possible. For example, they could drive a car out. The car windows would be smashed by hail, but they could cover them with quilts beforehand. They were in the residential complex anyway. Couldn't they drive at a crawl to reach the villa's entrance? Then, people could get out of the car, still using bedding to shield their heads. They probably wouldn't get injured by hail for a short period. Then, one strike with a sledgehammer, and the courtyard gate would naturally open. If they then battered the villa's main entrance the same way, wouldn't they be able to rush in? Hith. The premise for this to work was that Xiao Ran's villa hadn't been modified. But the problem was, Xiao Ran had spent 80 million on renovating it. Even if they drove a bulldozer over, Xiao Ran was confident enough that the villa would stop the bulldozer, not be knocked down by it. Trying to destroy the villa with manpower? Haha, wasn't that a joke? He was very much looking forward to seeing their expressions when they failed to break in. Time for an afternoon nap then. He'd probably be up late again tonight. He went to sleep, but not long after, he was awakened by an alarm. He picked up his phone and saw that someone else had arrived. A woman. Huh, she looks a bit familiar. I remember now. It's that loudmouth's wife. Back when the cataclysm first started, Xiao Ran was walking his leopard when he encountered a group of people who wanted to buy supplies from him. Naturally, Xiao Ran refused. One of them, a loudmouth, had sarcastically taunted him about Zheng Jie being a bastard, and Xiao Ran had beaten him up. At that time, he had even deliberately invited the loudmouth's wife to come find him if she got hungry. And now, she actually came? Xiao Ran couldn't help but shake his head. When people were starving, they really would abandon all dignity. Wait a minute. Xiao Ran saw another person in the passage. The loudmouth. Not only was he hiding by the door, but he was also holding a club. Was he waiting to ambush him after he opened the door? He'd been wrong. They hadn't come to trade dignity for food. They were planning to use a honey trap to kill him. Vicious. But had this loudmouth forgotten that Xiao Ran had beaten him black and blue last time? With that kind of combat prowess, he thought he could kill him? Oh, an ambush. In an ambush, combat strength didn't matter as much. If you were caught off guard, one good whack with a club could take down even a fighting champion. Hith. The main event tonight hadn't even started, and here was an appetizer. Fine by him. Xiao Ran went to the basement and asked through the door, "Who is it?" "Xiao Ran, it's me, Lin Lin," the woman outside said. "Didn't you say I could come to you for food anytime I was hungry?" Xiao Ran pretended to recall, then said after a moment, and chuckled. "I have food, but do you know the price you have to pay?" I know, Lin Lin said. "Good," Xiao Ran said. Then, with a clank, the door opened. Light and warmth flooded out simultaneously. Lin Lin couldn't help but look at her husband. The loudmouth nodded at her, signaling, "You go in first. I'll follow behind you. And as soon as I see Xiao Ran, I'll smash him with the club." Lin Lin mustered her courage and walked into the room. In truth, the light was also drawing her in, not to mention the warmth, which was intoxicating. The loudmouth crouched down, about to follow, when unexpectedly, the iron door automatically closed. Startled, he quickly reached for the door handle, trying to stop it. However, the force of the closing door was too great for him to resist. With a thud, the door shut tight. The loudmouth was instantly dumbfounded. "I'm still out here." Lin Lin entered the basement. She turned her head and was stunned. Her husband? Where was her husband? Xiao Ran, however, walked over. He casually tossed out a few packs of instant noodles, even some braised eggs, and a few bottles of mineral water, ordering against the door. Lin Lin instinctively wanted to refuse, but when she saw the abundant food on the ground, the refusal on the tip of her tongue turned into a silent movement of her lips. She had been starving for days. Otherwise, she wouldn't have followed her husband here to take such a risk. Xiao Ran smiled and handed her a roasted chicken leg. "Eat." Lin Lin couldn't help but reach out and take it. The aroma of the roasted chicken was too fragrant, too tempting. She instinctively took a bite. Xiao Ran thoughtfully handed her a bottle of water, which she also took and drank. Her parched throat was immediately soothed. A dozen or so minutes later, she had devoured everything. "Full?" Xiao Ran asked with a smile. For Xiao Ran, this was of course just a small interlude. He knew the loudmouth wanted to kill him, but he hadn't struck a fatal blow. Was it because he was merciful? No, this was about destroying their spirit, not just their lives. You can kill a person anytime, but what's the point of just killing them directly? Making them live in constant regret and shame, now that's the way. And Xiao Ran dared to do this because he had enough strength. Otherwise, if he were just an ordinary person, he would definitely have tried his best to eliminate all threats in their infancy. He could kill the loudmouth whenever he wanted. Could the guy even escape this residential complex? Xiao Ran wouldn't even need to do it himself. If he just offered some food as a reward and had others do it, how many people do you think would eagerly become his executioners? Human life was so cheap now. Killing someone was too easy. Using the resources at his disposal, Xiao Ran only needed to offer a tiny bit to create a bloodbath in the complex. Before, it was called the power of money. Now, the power of food. He hadn't done so, simply because he didn't want them to die too quickly and leave him bored. "You all just hang in there. At least wait until the hail stops or the thick fog clears. By then, my energy will be focused on collecting energy sources. And once I can get out, there will naturally be more interesting people to help me pass the time, instead of just focusing on these neighbors in the complex." He awaited nightfall. That night, Sufong and his men took action. They split into two groups. One, led by Sufong, would launch a feint attack. Since they had deceived Xiao Ran, Sufong, as the leader, definitely had to be seen and heard by Xiao Ran to prevent any suspicion. The other team's mission was much more dangerous. They carried a bed to the base of the apartment building. They had piled bedding on it, letting it hang down to protect most of their bodies. Moreover, there was a plastic layer in the middle of the bedding to prevent toxic water from melted hail from dripping onto them. Although visibility outside was only about 1 meter, the residential complex wasn't that large, and they were very familiar with the place, so there was no way they could get lost. 10 men, all standing under the bed, carried it as they walked. Covering 100 meters would be absolutely no problem. Sufong once again rallied his men. Brothers, whether we strike it rich, whether we get to live large, whether we can have beautiful women lying before us obediently calling us daddy, it all comes down to this. Ugh. Everyone roared, their morale evidently high. Move out. Sufong and his men split up, one group taking the overt approach, the other covert, both heading towards Xiao Ran's villa. The group heading for the basement would surely arrive first. Shining 2 flashlights, they began to examine the steel door. A knock produced a dull, reverberating thud. Damn, this guy really went all out, reinforcing the basement entrance so solidly, someone exclaimed. The sound alone told them the steel door must be incredibly thick. Someone chuckled. What? Did he have a crystal ball? Knew the apocalypse was coming. Sufong sneered. Must have watched too many zombie movies. A thick steel door like this is obviously for keeping out zombies. Right now, it's just poisonous hail and freezing weather. What good is a thick door? But if this kid really was brainwashed by apocalypse flicks, his stash of supplies might be even bigger than we imagined. Exactly. Everyone's eyes lit up. This meant their haul could be even greater than expected. Quick, make it look like we're forcing it. A feint attack. They scraped metal tools against the steel door, creating a harsh, screeching sound to mimic welding. Xiao Ran smirked and tapped something on his phone. Suddenly, the entire fire sprinkler system in the passage activated and liquid rained down. In reality, Jia Yingui would never have agreed to modify the complex's existing fire safety system. He'd face criminal charges if caught. So, Xiao Ran had him install an additional one. No problem with that, right? And what water source had Xiao Ran connected to this new sprinkler system? The melted, poisonous hail, of course, albeit diluted. Instantly, screams echoed through the passage. It's poison water. Fuck, that kid's vicious. Run. Sufong and his men scrambled and stumbled their way out of the passage. With great difficulty, they finally escaped the passage and the spray of toxic water. They all collapsed, stunned and terrified. Xiao Ran had actually rigged the fire sprinkler system. Damn the property management. Damn the housing bureau. Damn the fire department. How could they let such an obvious violation slide? They clearly hadn't noticed that Xiao Ran hadn't modified the fire system. He'd merely added one. But did that distinction matter now? What do we do? The men looked at each other. Their mission was to draw Xiao Ran's attention from below so the ground team could storm the villa. Instead, they'd all become dead weight. Had they diverted even an iota of Xiao Ran's attention? Hardly. Sufong was dumbfounded. The situation was completely beyond his expectations. Xiao Ran hadn't even shown his face, yet he'd toyed with them until they were a miserable wreck. This outcome was so far from what Sufong had anticipated. How could he possibly respond? For a moment, his head throbbed with the enormity of the problem. Go back and get umbrellas, he finally blurted out, a sudden idea striking him. Right. Instantly, the men hurried back to fetch umbrellas. Luckily, the liquid they'd been sprayed with was diluted poison hail. Otherwise, it wouldn't have just been a brief sting. They'd have been incapacitated on the ground for at least half an hour. We need to change out of these wet clothes, too. Yeah, or we'll freeze to death first. They hurried back. Meanwhile, the ground team had reached the front of Xiao Ran's villa. Breached the gate. With a swing of a large sledgehammer, crack, the villa's courtyard gate was easily smashed open. The men, greatly encouraged, pressed forward. They reached a window and swung the sledgehammer at it. Clang! A heavy impact. The man wielding the hammer felt his arms go numb from the shock. The sledgehammer slipped from his grasp and landed right on his foot, bringing tears to his eyes. What was going on? The others shone their flashlights and were instantly stunned. Window? What window? This was clearly a steel plate. Unbelieving, some even touched it. The space where a window should have been was now covered by a thick steel plate. No wonder the sledgehammer blow had sent such a jarring shock up his arms. Could they even break through this? Impossible. What now? What else? Retreat. Shouldn't we try the main door? Are you fucking stupid? He boarded up the windows with steel plates. You think the main door won't be protected? Let's get out of here. I'm running out of strength holding this heavy bed up. Me too. And it's wet and freezing out here. I feel like the toxic water is seeping in. Let's go back quickly. With this kind of protection, we can't last out here much longer. New plan. The men were about to retreat when, just then, a window on the second floor opened, and Xiao Ran's voice drifted down. "Since you're here, don't bother leaving." "Xiao Ran," they exclaimed in unison. They tried to look up, but were blocked by the bed they were holding as a shield. Blocked view or not, they had to leave now, or they wouldn't hold out. Thud! Suddenly, the bed shuddered violently, nearly knocking them off their feet. What was happening? Thump! Another dull impact, followed by the sound of heavy objects striking. It sounded like rocks hitting something. Strange, how could that be happening? Creak! The bed, however, began to groan as if under immense strain. What the crash? Before they could fully process it, the bed collapsed catastrophically, pinning everyone underneath and triggering a wave of screams. The men tried to crawl out, but were horrified to find the bed was impossibly heavy. They couldn't break free, and then they finally saw it. A mountain of rocks was piled on top of the bed. No wonder it had collapsed under the weight, and no wonder 10 grown men couldn't support it. Clack, clack, clack. The hail was still falling. Although the hailstones were much smaller than a few days ago, each one still hurt when it struck. Crucially, the hail was poisonous. Contact with skin allowed the toxins to enter the body, causing a burning pain. AR! The 10 men screamed wretchedly, as if they had fallen into hell itself. Xiao Ran shut the window. The yelling outside was deafening, shrill, and grating. Naturally, it was his doing. He'd used slabs of stone to crush the makeshift shields those people had crafted out of bed frames. Stones, scrap metal, rebar. He had no shortage of them stocked up. Woof! The leopard gave a low growl, baring its teeth, vicious and ready to strike. If Xiao Ran opened the door now, it would charge out without hesitation. But of course, he had no intention of opening it. The 10 people outside? They were dead men walking. Whether they got pounded to death by hail, crushed by debris, or poisoned, the method was still unclear, but death itself was certain. So, why waste time on people who were already doomed? With a faint smile, Xiao Ran stepped outside with the leopard. Underground parking garage. The leopard had a sharp nose. It could sniff out people from a distance, making it terrifyingly effective in a pitch-black garage. If anyone used a flashlight, it would only give away their position faster. Xiao Ran had rigged the place beforehand, fixing several flashlights in different locations. Primitive as they looked, each flashlight was equipped with infrared remote triggers. At the push of a button, he could light them all up or shut them all off in an instant. He turned off the lights and waited silently with the leopard. Before long, Sufong and his crew returned, just as expected. Of course, it took them a while. Just climbing the stairs was time-consuming, not to mention the full change of clothes they needed afterward. Inside and out, they had to swap everything. There was no way to move quickly like that. Flashlight beams flickered across the garage as they approached. Closer, closer. Now, Xiao Ran pressed the button. Instantly, 7 high-powered beams burst to life, shining straight at Sufeng's group. They had flashlights of their own, yes, but none pointed at their own faces. Blinded by the sudden burst of light, they instinctively shielded their eyes. Panic set in immediately. Xiao Ran walked out with the leopard at his side, calm and composed. A shaft of light behind him stretched a shadow long and tall, giving him an imposing, almost regal presence. It was all deliberately staged. "Xiao Ran," someone in Sufeng's group gasped, recognizing him through squinting fingers. Panic swept over them, because up until now, countless people had tried to kill Xiao Ran. And what became of them? Just look at the entrance to his villa, bodies stacked like a small hill. Don't even try to say those people just stumbled in and died on their own. Xiao Ran was just an ordinary man, or so they thought. Then why was he so terrifying in a fight? That was what nobody could understand. It was the fear of the unknown. Xiao Ran gave a slight smile and pulled a gun from his pocket. A realistic replica, complete with a silencer. He raised it and aimed at Sufong. "Kneel," he said flatly. "A gun." Their faces instantly changed. No wonder so many had died trying to cross him. He had a firearm. Damn it. Why had they been so calm earlier? It was a gun, for crying out loud. As the realization sank in, they all began trembling. Sufong started to kneel, then hesitated. "You almost had me," he said. "You're not law enforcement, and firearms are banned. I don't believe you actually got your hands on one. That thing's fake. You just scared those other idiots into death with a toy." A reasonable deduction. But Xiao Ran smirked, tilted the barrel slightly to the side, and pulled the trigger. Click! A soft, nearly inaudible shot, and someone behind Sufong dropped to the ground. The impact echoed off the garage floor. Bang! A gaping hole in his forehead, eyes wide open in disbelief, as if to say, I didn't believe you. Why shoot me?" The rest of the group trembled violently. A real gun. It was real. With a loud plop, Sufong hit his knees immediately. A real man knows when to bend. As long as he could survive, there would always be a chance for revenge. Xiao Ran smiled. Replica gun, real bullets from the alternate space. Who wouldn't be afraid of that? Want to live, he asked. Yes. Sufong blurted out. Too bad I don't feel like giving you the chance, Xiao Ran said. As he squeezed the trigger again, another bullet from the alternate space fired. Sufong knew the moment he heard those words, it was over. He scrambled backward in a desperate attempt to flee. But how could he outrun a bullet? Not only that, Xiao Ran had arranged all those flashlights to perfectly light the area. There was no darkness for Sufong to hide in. The gunshot rang out, and the rest scattered in terror. But Xiao Ran had no intention of letting them go. As soon as anyone tried to disappear into the shadows, bullets followed. One after another. Bang, bang, bang. Bodies hit the ground. But one of them managed to escape into the darkness. It was Guharin. The leopard gave chase immediately. Guharin's scream echoed back, followed by the leopard's pain growl. Leopard, come back, Xiao Ran shouted. To him, the leopard's life was far more valuable than Guharin's. A moment later, the leopard returned, blood dripping from a fresh wound on its left ear. Still, it looked proud, because it had bitten Guharin even worse. Good job, leopard. Xiao Ran grinned. Come on, let's patch you up. As for Guharin, he wouldn't chase after him, but letting him off scot-free? Not a chance. Back at the villa, Xiao Ran treated the leopard's wound, then sent a message to the group chat. Bounty on Guharin. Whoever kills him and sends a photo gets 2 boxes of instant noodles and 1 box of water. Big rewards bring out bold people. With that bounty out, Guharin wouldn't be able to trust anyone. It was only a matter of days before someone found him and finished the job. How many would die trying to kill him? Xiao Ran didn't care in the slightest. Not his problem. What, did people think he couldn't afford a few boxes of noodles and water? He took a shower, crawled into bed, and fell asleep quickly. Why not? This villa had cost 80 million to fortify. If it couldn't even make him feel safe enough to sleep, then what was the point? While he slept peacefully, the entire neighborhood was thrown into chaos by the bounty he'd issued. 2 boxes of instant noodles and a box of water. Not 2 packs, not a single bottle, whole boxes. If someone got that bounty, they could survive for days. Natural disasters couldn't last forever. The longer someone lasted, the more likely they'd survive it all. Sure, some people were asleep. Some had dead phones and never saw the message. But many were already gearing up, stepping out of their homes fully armed, ready to hunt. Because right now, those supplies were worth more than $1 million used to be. And besides, who cared about murder anymore? Civilization had already collapsed. Xiao Ran woke up. Apocalypse, day 8. He casually brushed his teeth and washed his face, then started on breakfast. Only then did he pick up his phone to check it. Guharin had been found, his throat slit. Someone had tagged him in the group chat and posted a photo. That was fast. He'd figured Guharin could hide out for several more days. Xiao Ran replied in the group. Add me. You can come for the reward whenever. You pick the time. A moment later, a friend request popped up. He accepted. The other person typed. I'll be there at 3 p.m. Leave the supplies by your door. All right, Xiao Ran replied. He checked the sender's profile. Sun Jihao, from Building 2. Guharin was also from Building 2. Xiao Ran figured Sun Jihao must have known him to trick his way in and kill him so easily. He didn't care how it happened. Guharin was dead, and that was all that mattered. Instant noodles and water? If he wanted, he could bury the entire residential complex in instant noodles or flood it with clean water. That's how ridiculously well-stocked he was. Building 3. Unlike the disarray in the other buildings, Building 3 had achieved unity, with everyone obeying a single man's orders. However, this man wasn't the building manager, but someone named Jang Kuan. Jang Kuan, 51 years old, was a full-time preacher. His business hadn't been doing well before. The local attitude towards deities was pragmatic, worship whichever one seemed to deliver, without exclusive devotion to any single god. But when a cataclysm struck, his business boomed. Such a bizarre cataclysm easily led people's thoughts to the divine. So, Jang Kuan seized the moment, proclaiming it a divine trial to cleanse the world of sin. Only those who believed in the Lord, he preached, would survive. And just like that, yada yada yada, he'd managed to brainwash everyone in Building 3. But surely not everyone was brainwashed. The Lord says those who do not believe are heretics and must be burned at the stake. Of course, they wouldn't actually burn anyone now. So, Jang Kuan led the charge and had all these heretics killed. Thus, Building 3 now had only one voice, the voice of God, which was in fact the voice of Jong Kuan. Although he held absolute power, with all 112 households and 407 residents of the building as his fanatical followers, Jong Kuan still faced a huge problem. People believed in him because they thought following him meant survival, not for some bullshit salvation. The current problem? Food and water. He had to solve this survival crisis. Otherwise, the same followers kneeling to him today would tear him apart for stew tomorrow. What would he do? His first instinct, naturally, was to seize Xiao Ran's supplies. But Sufong and his group had already proven with their lives that trying to snatch food from a tiger's mouth, in this case, Xiao Ran, would only get them killed. Success was impossible. That left only two options. First, persuasion, or rather, manipulation. If he could make Xiao Ran believe in the Lord, he could get all of Xiao Ran's supplies effortlessly. Offer everything to the Lord. Isn't that what you should do? He imagined saying. Second, negotiation. Give Xiao Ran something he needed in exchange for supplies. After much deliberation, Jong Kuan called Xiao Ran. The power was out. Even if the cell towers were still operational, how much longer could they last? In another couple of days, they'd probably have to resort to yelling at each other's doors to communicate. Hello, Xiao Ran. This is Jong Kuan, representative of Building 3, Jong Kuan said. I'm also the Lord's representative on Earth. Anyone who believes in the Lord can find salvation through me. A charlatan, Xiao Ran thought. He recalled what he knew about the man. All right, there was a guy like that, using the apocalypse to preach about gods and divine punishment, claiming the disaster was due to divine displeasure with humanity. Only devout believers would survive. Non-believers in the Lord were doomed. However, Xiao Ran knew this guy was 2 days away from his death in the previous timeline, so he didn't know much about him or his church. In his past life, he'd had no dealings with Jong Kuan, of course. But this life was different. What do you want? Xiao Ran asked coolly. Jong Kuan began. Oh, sinner, you are but a lost lamb. Hold it right there. Xiao Ran cut him off. Get to the point, or I'm hanging up. Don't you know how precious battery life is these days? Jong Kuan looked a bit embarrassed. No kidding. He knew just how precious electricity had become. The few people whose phones still worked were relying on power banks. But how long could those last? If it weren't for the supplies in your hands, you think I'd even bother talking to you? Jong Kuan took a deep breath. Back before the world collapsed, he'd been rejected countless times while trying to preach the faith. He'd developed plenty of patience over the years. So now, with forced calm, he said, I want to buy some supplies from you. A whole building of people are starving. I hope you'll consider. Xiao Ran chuckled. Shouldn't you be praying to your God to provide for you instead? Damn it. Even as a man of faith, Jong Kuan felt the urge to curse out loud. If the Lord could actually hand out food, who'd still need to work for it? Faith was just that. A belief. A belief, get it? Puffed. Godless mutt. While he looked at Xiao Ran with contempt in his heart, his tone remained smooth. I know you like women. Our church has 2 female followers who are willing to make a sacrifice. They'll satisfy your needs daily. In exchange, you give us 2 boxes of instant noodles, or the equivalent in food, and 2 boxes of water. What do you say? Xiao Ran burst out laughing. He laughed for so long that Jong Kuan finally snapped. Are you done yet? Only then did Xiao Ran stop and say, First of all, are you a church or a brothel? Second, if you're going to whore someone out, at least know the going rate. Right now, a night only costs 1 pack of noodles. Water's extra. Those 2 women of yours, what? Are they covered in diamonds or something? Or are they drop-dead gorgeous fairies that they're worth an entire box of noodles and water each? In this compound, Han Yun was probably the best-looking woman around. Even then, Xiao Ran never gave her more than a good meal and 3 or 4 packs of noodles and water. What you're offering? Total daylight robbery. Jong Kuan turned red from being so thoroughly shut down. He didn't know the current rates, which was why he got ridiculed like this. Swallowing his anger, he said, There are too many people in our building. We need at least 2 boxes of food and water every day. How about this? You tell me how many women you need, and I'll try to persuade more to step up, see if anyone's willing to sacrifice. Stop calling it sacrifice like you're some damn saint. You're just pimping people out. Don't act like you're saving the world. Xiao Ran said lazily, I don't need women, so save your breath. But since you're so obsessed with the word sacrifice, how about this? Find 3 men to take turns with you. Record it. Send me the video. I'll give you a box of instant noodles. I keep my word. Huh. Easy to expect others to suffer. When it's your turn, suddenly not so righteous, huh? Jong Kuan was speechless. After a long silence, he finally muttered, How dare you humiliate a servant of God like this? Xiao Ran smirked. Aren't you all followers of God? What, there's a hierarchy now? Others can sacrifice, but you can't. I've said what I had to say. If you want food, find 3 men, get railed, and record it. Then we'll talk. He hung up. Some people get a bit of power and start thinking they're above everyone else. But reality? Heh. Jong Kuan could be pissed all he wanted. Let him. Just a bunch of desperate stragglers following you around. Think they're ride or die because they joined your church? As if. There's an old saying, people only start praying when shit hits the fan. You want faith? Fine. But if that faith can't feed or save you, it's goodbye. Let's see. Do your followers believe in God, or do they believe in whatever keeps them alive? Xiao Ran posted in the community group. Anyone who can gangbang Jong Kuan from Building 3 gets 10 boxes of instant noodles or equivalent food and water. 10 boxes. That's a hell of a bounty. Enough to make more than a few heroes step up and ruin Jong Kuan's day. Try threatening me? I don't even have to lift a finger. I'll just put out a bounty and let the dogs off the leash. Xiao Ran smiled, then stopped thinking about that man entirely. That afternoon, he placed the promised food and water outside the door and watched the camera. Around 3 p.m., a man showed up. Early 30s, built like a tank, rough features, a thick neck tattoo, and a long scar across his face. The kind of guy who'd make kids cry in broad daylight. He held a flashlight and grinned when he saw the supplies. Then he picked them up effortlessly. Strong guy. Didn't even break a sweat moving everything. Xiao Ran watched him leave the hallway and enter the underground garage. Past that point, the cameras couldn't see. He wondered idly if someone might try to rob Sun Jihao. But it was just idle curiosity. He couldn't be bothered to care. Building 7, apartment 902. Knock, knock, knock. Someone knocked at the door. The apartment belonged to Song Fei. He looked through the peephole and saw a stunningly beautiful, very young woman standing there. She looked scared and vulnerable, arms wrapped around herself like she was freezing. Well, she was only wearing a thin sweater. In this cold, of course she was freezing. But because of that, her full curves were clearly visible. The way her chest pushed against the fabric made his throat bob involuntarily. Anyone there? Please. I'm cold. I'm thirsty. I'm starving. Let me in. I'll do anything you say. Song Fei couldn't hold back anymore. He unlocked the door with a click and said, Hey there, beautiful. SHHK. The girl's soft expression twisted into something cold and fierce. Her wrist flicked, revealing a sharp knife. Before he could react, she slashed his throat. Blood poured out in thick streams. GHKK. Song Fei couldn't even speak. His eyes widened in terror as he looked at this deadly beauty. He reached out, as if to ask why, but she slapped his hand away in disgust. Thud! He collapsed to the ground. Blood pooled fast beneath him. The noise drew his wife from another room. Honey, what happened? She froze when she saw her husband in a pool of blood. Then she screamed, H. Before the scream could even echo, the woman lunged forward and locked her in a chokehold. Song Fei's wife thrashed and struggled, but there was no escape. Her limbs flailed uselessly until she went stiff, then limp. Dead. The woman finally let go. Even after killing 2 people, her expression didn't change. She was a professional assassin. She used a knife on Song Fei because he was male, and, as a female assassin, she was at a disadvantage in terms of strength. The knife ensured she could take him down immediately. When dealing with women, however, she used a chokehold to suffocate them. This was because she was confident in her ability to overpower them this way, and using a knife would cause blood to splatter, staining her clothes. Where would she find water for a bath in these conditions? So, she opted for the more physically demanding method. This damn cataclysm, the female assassin cursed as she rummaged through the house. She searched every corner, looking for food and any other survivors. She pulled on winter clothes, concealing her voluptuous and alluring figure, then found the last remnants of Song Fei's food and began to eat slowly. Her name was Akai Sakari. That's right, she wasn't Chinese. Her profession was assassin. She was fluent in 5 languages, a master of disguise, and highly skilled in combat. She had come to Sioux City for a contract killing, a male target, naturally. She only ever accepted missions to kill men. With her captivating beauty, killing men was far too easy, so it was only logical to leverage her innate advantages. But just after she had rented a place, and before her operation had officially begun, the cataclysm had struck. She was a professional assassin, not a survival expert. This situation left her dumbfounded. With no other options, she had to fall back on her old trade, killing. Kill someone, and their possessions became hers. She fumbled with Song Fei's phone. It was the only one with a single bar of battery remaining. This guy named Xiao Ran seems to have a lot of supplies. Akai Sakari's eyes lit up. Killing the 2 people here would, at most, give her enough food for an extra day. But Xiao Ran was offering rewards of food and water by the crate. She licked her lips, her gaze intense. This man is a lecher, preying on women throughout the entire residential complex. The woman couldn't help but sneer. Killing you will be effortless. However, she had also noticed the fear everyone in the complex harbored for Xiao Ran. The man was suspected of having a gun. Akai Sakari tensed. Though a professional assassin skilled in various killing methods, she knew that beyond 7 paces, a gun was undoubtedly faster. No matter how fiercely she fought, it would be futile. And within 7 paces, a gun was still quick and accurate. So, those movie scenes depicting disarming someone at close range or dodging bullets were pure fiction, unless the person wielding the gun was a complete amateur. A gun makes things difficult. Akai Sakari hesitated for a moment, but then her face blossomed into a radiant smile. But he's a lecher. At worst, I'll just have to use my looks to make him lower his guard, then stab him to death. She began her preparations, tucking a dagger into her boot. Taking off her outer coat, she admired herself in a mirror. The curves and contours beneath her sweater. TSK. Any man would be captivated. Right, let's go seduce that lecherous man. She put her winter clothes back on. Arriving at the underground garage, she used her phone as a flashlight. After walking for a while, she found herself beneath Xiao Ran's villa. By the dim light of her phone, she saw bodies wedged between cars, and she gasped. Gunshot wounds. A chill ran down her spine, her expression changing drastically. As a professional assassin, she was no stranger to bullet wounds. Judging by these, they were clearly from rifle bullets. Guns were strictly prohibited in Huaxia. Even she hadn't dared to bring one into the country, opting instead to acquire a dagger after her arrival. So, where did Xiao Ran get a gun and bullets? And a rifle, no less. Was this guy ex-military? But could soldiers take their weapons home? Obviously not. Akai Sakari was baffled and grew more hesitant. Perhaps she shouldn't provoke this mysterious man. After all, there were so many bodies lying outside. But then she reconsidered. What was her advantage? Her beauty. And Xiao Ran's weakness? His lust. I can definitely succeed. And if I pull this off, I should be able to live comfortably for a long time. She decided to take the risk. Akai Sakari hesitated no longer. She walked into the passage, first taking off her outer coat. Even though she shivered violently from the cold, she endured it, even shining her phone on her face, afraid Xiao Ran wouldn't see what a great beauty she was. Bang, bang, bang. She pounded on the heavy iron door. It was truly massive. She was astounded. With her professional judgment, she was certain that even a large amount of C4 couldn't blast this door open. Its security level was higher than an average bank vault. She waited for Xiao Ran to appear. At this moment, Xiao Ran naturally noticed Akai Sakari. Huh, which building was this resident from? Although he couldn't possibly know everyone in the complex, someone as beautiful as her. Even if he hadn't seen her, he would have heard of her. Xiao Ran clicked his tongue slightly and asked, "Who are you and what do you want?" "My name is Zhang Li. I'd like some food," she said in the most delicate and fragile voice she could muster. Xiao Ran glanced at the surveillance monitor, confirmed she was alone, and then opened the iron door. After Akai Sakari entered, he closed it again. The door was remote-controlled and fingerprint-activated, so even if someone else managed to get past the outer defenses, they could only stare helplessly at the sealed entrance. The iron door clanged shut, and Akai Sakari's heart tightened. In her mind, she had already labeled Xiao Ran as a suspected ex-soldier, a sniper, and a combat expert. Now, she had to face such a person alone, and she was undeniably nervous. But it was so warm here. She had deliberately taken off her winter coat to show off her figure and enhance her charm, shivering badly just moments before. Now, however, she felt no chill at all. There was heating. Fantastic. Her desire to take over this place intensified. There were even lights. Her heart pounded in her chest, but she forced a bashful expression onto her face and asked, "Where are you?" "Here." Xiao Ran's voice came from behind the screen. "Take off your clothes." "What?" Akai Sakari couldn't believe her ears. "Aren't you a bit too eager?" Xiao Ran chuckled. Of course, he wasn't being lewdly impatient. He just sensed that something was off about this woman. He needed to know if she was carrying any weapons. No one else had deliberately taken off their outer coat at the door. She was the first and only one. Did she realize how cold it was? Over 10 degrees below 0 Celsius. Although taking off a coat for a short period wouldn't cause frostbite, her sheer resilience was enough to put Xiao Ran on high alert. How many people could actually remove their coat in such freezing weather? Most would be yelping and jumping from the invading chill. Yet, she had done it. Xiao Ran could assume she was intentionally flaunting her figure, but was it really necessary to go to such lengths? When someone possessed endurance far beyond the ordinary, they naturally warranted closer attention and caution. If Akai Sakari had known her cleverness would backfire, she definitely wouldn't have taken off her coat. Rei Akasaka hesitated, but he was already inside. Could she possibly back out now? She bit her lip and began to undress. Her movements were slow, befitting the modesty of a virtuous woman. Thankfully, the dagger is in my boot, she thought to herself. No matter how slowly she moved, she eventually stripped down to her underwear. This should be enough, right? Xiao Ran just smiled. You shower with your underwear on? You can shower here? Rei Akasaka shot back, stunned. Xiao Ran merely grunted. Faced with the temptation of a shower, Rei Akasaka relented. She stepped into the bathroom. Shh. Hot water sprayed from the shower head. She first touched it gingerly with her fingertips. When she realized it was indeed safe, a wave of excitement washed over her. But then, horror struck. Others were struggling for even a sip of water, some even fighting over it, and here he was luxuriously using hot water for a shower. This was insane. How'd he manage it? But she pushed those thoughts aside for now, choosing instead to revel in the cascade of hot water. She hadn't showered in 8 days. Even though the temperature was freezing and she was unlikely to sweat, given her line of work, she'd inevitably get bloodstains on her no matter how careful she was. She'd actually been disgusted by the smell clinging to her. Now, finally, she could wash properly. In that moment, her resolve to take this place from him became unshakable. Xiao Ran? She suddenly jolted. Lost in her shock, she realized she hadn't paid attention to his movements for a while. What was he doing? Rei Akasaka didn't dare underestimate Xiao Ran in the slightest. Just then, she saw a man walk into the bathroom. How can you come in here? She exclaimed, a mix of shame and anger flushing her face. Xiao Ran chuckled. Didn't you offer yourself up? And now you're playing coy. Still, I didn't expect you to be of mixed heritage, Xiao Ran remarked. As the water washed over her, the woman's raven hair revealed its true color, golden blonde. Rei Akasaka knew she couldn't hide it anymore. She went ahead and removed her colored contact lenses, revealing a pair of striking azure eyes. That's right. My father is American, she declared with immense pride. Damn, is that something to be proud of? Xiao Ran was thoroughly unimpressed and moved to act. Rei Akasaka immediately fought back. She was furious now, unwilling to hold back any longer. She wanted to kill this Chinese man, even unarmed. As a professional assassin, her hand-to-hand combat skills were not to be trifled with. The problem was, her opponent was no ordinary person. After his rebirth, Xiao Ran's body seemed to have been enhanced, making him incredibly formidable, definitely at a world-class level. While Rei Akasaka wasn't weak, she was still a long way from the top tier. So, the outcome of their unarmed fight was her utter defeat. Rei Akasaka, catching her breath, snapped, Aren't you gonna get off me? Xiao Ran said lightly, Your muscles are quite firm, and your fighting technique just now was pretty good. Miss, who exactly are you? A flicker of panic crossed Rei Akasaka's heart. I'm a martial arts enthusiast. Is that a problem? A problem? Of course not, Xiao Ran chuckled. His hand circled her neck, as if captivated by its swan-like, snow-white, slender grace. It sent a shiver down Rei Akasaka's spine, raising goosebumps. However, Xiao Ran's voice continued. I found a dagger in your boot. Rei Akasaka realized something was wrong. Just as she tried to move, the large hands around her neck tightened abruptly. She made gurgling sounds, struggling desperately, trying to kick Xiao Ran, but she couldn't reach him. Her vision blurred, the severe lack of oxygen making her suffer intensely. Just when she thought she was about to die, Xiao Ran suddenly released his grip. What's your real identity? Xiao Ran asked, his voice sounding as if it came from a distant, cold, and hopeless place. Xiao Ran naturally wouldn't be lenient with someone who wanted to kill him. Rei Akasaka's will had crumbled on the brink of death. She quickly stammered, My real name is Rei Akasaka. I'm from Japan. My father is American. I'm a professional assassin. I came to China this time to kill a man named Liu Bingsheng, not you. She was terrified of Xiao Ran now. So, she was Japanese. That figured. No wonder she was so proud when she mentioned America. America practically is Japan's daddy, isn't it? And in her case, literally her father too, huh? Liu Bingsheng? The name sounded familiar. Xiao Ran thought for a moment, and then an O escaped him. Liu Bingsheng was a famous entrepreneur in Sioux City. Rumor had it he was a live-in son-in-law who seemed to be living out a power fantasy protagonist script, rising meteorically and transforming his wife's small factory into a multi-billion-dollar conglomerate. Han Yuan Real Estate. That was one of Sioux City's top 10 private enterprises. But who would hire an assassin to murder a star entrepreneur? Well, what the hell does it have to do with me? Japanese women aren't half bad, Xiao Ran mused, a murderous glint returning to his eyes. When I get a chance to go to Tokyo, I'll find a few more to play with. You just want to know if Rei Akasaka was specifically after him and if she had any accomplices. Now that he had his answers, why wait to send her on her way? Keep an assassin by his side? Not to mention, she was an untamable type from Japan, a treacherous viper. Even if she were Chinese, Xiao Ran wouldn't take that risk. Seeing this, Rei Akasaka quickly begged, tears streaming down her face. Please don't kill me. I'm still a virgin. Really, that was my first time. Does being a virgin earn you a pardon? You came to kill me, and you think I'd spare you because you're a virgin? Xiao Ran was stone-hearted. He would never show an ounce of pity to his enemies. So what if she was beautiful? If she threatened his life, she had to be eliminated without mercy. Xiao Ran grabbed Rei Akasaka and gave her a hard shove. She stumbled backward, but after only 2 steps, whoosh, she suddenly vanished. Fallen into an alternate dimension, she was definitely a goner. Who would hire a Japanese assassin to kill someone in China? Xiao Ran wondered briefly, but it was destined to remain an unsolved mystery. He disposed of the things Rei Akasaka had left behind. An assassin, after all. No sympathy was warranted. After tidying everything up, he went upstairs. Suddenly, his phone rang. Xiao Ran glanced at it. The number was unfamiliar. He thought for a moment and then answered, "Hello, Mr. Xiao, hello. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Liu Bingsheng." Xiao Ran paused. He now seriously suspected Qijing Banli and this Liu Bingsheng were accomplices. Otherwise, how could one have just arrived when the other called right after? "Hello, Mr. Xiao, are you still there?" Liu Bingsheng asked when Xiao Ran didn't respond for a while. Xiao Ran chuckled. "I'm here. Go ahead. I'm not sure if Mr. Xiao is aware of my identity, so allow me to introduce myself first," Liu Bingsheng said. "Has Mr. Xiao heard of Han Yuan Real Estate?" "I know. You're the boss of Han Yuan Real Estate," Xiao Ran stated, saving Liu Bingsheng a long-winded explanation. Liu Bingsheng chuckled. "Good that Mr. Xiao knows. I have a proposal. If Mr. Xiao is willing to give up the villa, or perhaps let us move in, then, once this cataclysm is over, I, Liu, am willing to offer half of my company shares." My, what audacity! That was undoubtedly a fortune worth hundreds of millions. A pity. Xiao Ran shook his head. "Mr. Liu, don't bother with the empty promises. This cataclysm. Let's not even discuss when it might end. Even if it did conclude quickly, how many people would have died? After such an impact, Mr. Liu, how much do you think your shares will actually be worth? Even if the cataclysm could end in a short time, real estate would undoubtedly be among the hardest-hit industries, perhaps even collapsing completely. So, Liu Bingqing's shares might not be entirely like waste paper, but they wouldn't be much better. The crucial point was, even if the hail stopped and the dense fog lifted, all the plants outside would be dead. What followed would be a terrifying famine. For a long time to come, the scarcest and most sought-after things would still be food and clean water. Money? What damn good would it be? Liu Bingqing seemed momentarily speechless. After a pause, he said, "All right, then let's not talk about money. I hear you have an appreciation for beautiful women. I happen to have one here. Why don't you take a look and see if she meets your standards?" A short while later, Xiao Ran received an MMS. Attached were several candid photos. It was a beautiful woman, at most in her early 20s. Not only was she pretty, but she also had an air of remarkable innocence, with long hair cascading over her shoulders and eyes like clear pools of water. Her height couldn't be determined from the photos, but she was perfectly proportioned, a waist so slender one could encircle it with a single hand, yet she possessed large breasts and rounded hips. She was a genuine stunner. "I'll give you this woman. How much food and clean water can you give me for her?" Liu Bingqing asked in a low voice. Xiao Ran let out a dry laugh. "Mr. Liu, weren't you trying to trade a house? When did you become a human trafficker?" His tone had turned sharp. Even if he were to make a deal, he preferred to deal directly with the individual involved, not with some middleman pocketing the difference. Liu Bingsheng fell silent for a moment, then said, "Let me tell you a story. Does Mr. Xiao have time to listen?" Xiao Ran chuckled. It's a rare opportunity to hear a story from a magnate like Mr. Liu. "Please go on." Liu Bingqing began. "I came from a poor background, but I studied hard, got into a prestigious university, and I wasn't bad looking. So, Not long after graduation, I married my wife. However, her family was well off, so I was a live-in son-in-law. Mr. Xiao, you're also a live-in son-in-law. You should understand the difficulties we face, right? Xiao Ran smiled faintly. We might both be live-in son-in-laws, but your circumstances were 100 times better than mine. Lu Bingcheng continued, but my wife had some health issues. We were married for so long, but she never conceived. And I didn't want the business I'd worked so hard to build to fall into the hands of those parasites in my wife's family. So, I found another woman, and she bore me a son. My wife's family is very powerful, so I placed the child in this residential complex, only managing to visit once a month when I could find time. Coincidentally, the cataclysm struck on June 1 SD. I had come over early, planning to take my son out for the day. As a result, the rest didn't need to be said. He was trapped here. A thought flashed through Xiao Ran's mind, and he suddenly understood why assassins might be after Lu Bingcheng. So, you have an illegitimate son. You'd definitely try to hand over Hongyuan real estate to him. But would your wife's family ever agree to that? When tens of billions in assets are at stake, hiring assassins is hardly surprising, is it? If Lu Bingcheng died, Hongyuan real estate would naturally go to his wife's family. The illegitimate son? They'd probably kill him too. Wait, Xiao Ran paused. The photos you just showed me, that wouldn't be your mistress, would it? Lu Bingcheng admitted it outright. That's right, she's my mistress. Though, I'm old enough to be her father. I chose her because she's beautiful enough and a top student from a prestigious university. She could give my son the best genes. I'm not hiding any of this from you. I just want you to know that everything I'm doing is to ensure my son can survive. For my son, I can give up anything, but similarly for him, I can also risk everything. That last sentence was an undeniable threat. Xiao Ran smiled faintly. Mr. Lu, are you declaring war on me? Come to think of it, you should be thanking me. I just dealt with an assassin. Still, with this cataclysm, Qi Jing family has probably lost interest in continuing that mission anyway, right? Oh well, it's not like I killed her for your sake. Lu Bingcheng pondered for a moment, then chuckled. Of course, I don't wish to go to war with Mr. Xiao. After all, your recent achievements have been quite astonishing. I still hope Mr. Xiao can accept my proposal. I can give you my woman, and all you have to do is give my son enough food and water. Xiao Ran had no issue with women making deals with him directly. But this CEO, Lu, acting all high and mighty, putting on a show of being a doting father, how was he in reality any different from those trying to snatch away his resources? And if I don't agree, he asked lightly. It would be best if you did, Lu Bingcheng replied, just as casually. I also brought 2 bodyguards with me. Both are ex-mercenaries. As for their strength, well, one of them can kill 4 or 5 adult men barehanded without a problem. With knives, one taking on 10 wouldn't be difficult. So, Mr. Xiao, it would be best to accept my proposal. That way, everyone will be happy. Xiao Ran smiled faintly. Nice proposal, but don't bring it up again. Goodbye. He hung up the phone directly. Treating his own woman like a piece of merchandise, Xiao Ran felt an instinctive disgust for Lu Bingcheng. Lu Bingcheng might be a ruthless character, but he was definitely not to Xiao Ran's liking. No, this won't do. Xiao Ran picked up his phone and started posting another bounty, this time targeting Lu Bingcheng. This man is likely far more dangerous than Zhang Kuan. After all, he's a CEO. He could easily use that same spiel to convince many people. It's far more potent than Zhang Kuan's charlatan tricks. A bounty on a life. Name, Lu Bingcheng, CEO of Hongyuan Real Estate, currently in our residential complex, with at least 2 bodyguards. I don't care how many people it takes. Whoever can kill Lu Bingcheng, I will reward them with 20 boxes of instant noodles or an equivalent amount of supplies. He downloaded a few photos of Lu Bingcheng from the internet and posted them in the group chat. Lu Bingcheng slowly hung up the phone. Boss Lu, the 4 bodyguards looked at him simultaneously. Lu Bingcheng had lied. He didn't have just 2 bodyguards, but 4. Lu Bingcheng placed his phone on the table. His brow furrowed slightly as he looked towards a beautiful woman nearby. The woman was about 24 or 25 years old, holding a 3 or 4-year-old boy in her arms, who was sleeping soundly. He refused. Lu Bingcheng said calmly. The beautiful woman, holding the child and patting him comfortingly a couple of times, said, "Didn't you say he has a weakness for women? How could he refuse such an enticing offer?" Lu Bingcheng smiled. Yes, so this really caught me by surprise. He rubbed his temples, looking very troubled. Boss Lu, what do we do then? One of the bodyguards asked. A direct assault? Lu Bingcheng chuckled dismissively. Haven't several groups already tried to force their way in? Your combat strength is considerably higher than ordinary people, but in terms of raw strength, you're at most twice as strong as a normal person. So, just the four of you expect to force the door open. Impossible, the beautiful woman interjected. Then I'll go and lure him into opening the door. Lu Bingsheng still shook his head. That kid's villa has definitely been modified. If it were me, after spending so much money on renovations, wouldn't I install security cameras? Even though the power is out now, I could easily have my own generator, use diesel or gasoline, and keep it running for 10 days to half a month, no problem at all. So, the moment we stand at his door, even if we don't make a sound, we won't be able to hide from that kid inside. Besides, Lu Bingsheng sighed. Didn't that Guharin guy mention before that Xiao Ran can also control the fire sprinkler system and spray poisonous water on them? I'm asking you, if you go lie in wait at someone's doorstep and they just douse you with poisonous water, how would you deal with that? The four bodyguards were all dumbfounded. When it came to fighting, even killing, they were professionals. But tasks like this requiring brains, they weren't good at that at all. So what now? Lu Bingsheng shook his head. Why are you always so fixated on Xiao Ran? He likely has a lot of supplies, but he's hard to deal with in the current situation. Let's focus on others first. For example, bring the entire residential complex under our control. Then we can have people dig through his walls. I refuse to believe we can't dig that kid out. Everyone's eyes lit up. Indeed, with so many households in the complex, why insist on confronting Xiao Ran? Isn't other people's food still food, and their clean water still clean water? When it came to brains, they had Lu Bingsheng. For brawn, the four bodyguards could each take on 10 men. So, with a combination like theirs, couldn't they dominate a mere residential complex? The beautiful woman just held her child and remained silent. Xiao Ran stretched lazily. By his count, 2 groups in the complex had already threatened him. One was a charlatan, the other a CEO type. Neither can be underestimated, Xiao Ran muttered. In his previous life, he was just a nobody, so he'd never have crossed paths with such big shots. Thus, even though they were in the same residential complex, it was as if they lived in 2 different worlds. But now, both groups had their eyes on him, because he had a villa and plenty of supplies. This naturally made others covetous. In fact, there were many greedy people like the Qin family or Sufong. And the result? They all ended up as frozen corpses in the garage. Whether it was Zhang Kuan or Lu Bingsheng, their end would be no different. The fog hasn't lifted yet, so I'll play with you all a little longer, Xiao Ran mused to himself. In short, he would never leave his villa, so he was already in an unbeatable position. What was there to fear? In a direct confrontation, it didn't matter how many followers Zhang Kuan had, or how tough Lu Bingsheng's bodyguards were, or even if they were ex-mercenaries. Under a barrage of firepower, everyone is equal. What I need to watch out for is just not getting screwed over. On that note, I just need to be wary of women who come knocking. Strange women could all be sent by these 2 groups, and even Han Yun and the others might betray me. It's all about benefits, plain and simple. If a woman is foolish enough to believe the conditions offered by others, like getting half my supplies after taking me down, she might fall for it. After all, there's absolutely no emotional connection between me and them. It's purely transactional. If I believed there was any trust between us, I'd be the world's biggest fool. Xiao Ran was curious. After these 2 bounties were issued, could anyone succeed, and how long would it take? Then I'll just wait and see. Xiao Ran was monitoring messages in the group chat, but when night fell, the internet suddenly cut out. The cell towers had gone down too. Now, even if phones still had power, they were useless ornaments. Apart from playing offline games or looking at locally stored photos and videos, they couldn't do anything else. However, the one Xiao Ran had was different. It could make satellite calls. He went to the 3rd floor and contacted Lu Mei. The signal is completely gone. Yeah, we can only use satellite phones to contact each other from now on. Look on the bright side, Xiao Ran said. It's unlikely anyone will be charging us for satellite calls, right? Lu Mei couldn't help but chuckle. You're really optimistic, still in the mood to joke at a time like this. Of course, I'm optimistic, Xiao Ran replied. I've stored enough food to last several lifetimes and turn my villa into a secure fortress. So, what do I need to worry about? The 2 chatted back and forth. The disaster had also made Lu Mei very reliant on Xiao Ran, because now, apart from her close female friends, Xiao Ran was the only one she could really talk to. Xiao Ran, do you have enough to eat? Lu Mei asked with concern. If you don't have enough, you should try to come to our place. Ye have prepared plenty of food. Does this count as being a saint? Xiao Ran smiled to himself. When someone is good to him, it probably doesn't count. If Lu Mei were good to everyone, then she'd be a saint. I have food. I happen to stockpile a bunch before the apocalypse, Xiao Ran said. If you run out of food, you can also come to me. I have enough here to last 2 or 3 years. No problem. Lu Mei was stunned. Her friend had prepared enough food for a few months, and she already thought that was an exaggeration. But Xiao Ran had actually stockpiled enough for 2 or 3 years. Heavens! This guy's doomsday prepping was on another level. But no one would have thought that the apocalypse would actually arrive one day, instantly making Xiao Ran the biggest beneficiary. You must be careful. Absolutely do not let anyone know you have so many supplies. Lu Mei's tone suddenly sharpened. Now, and in the future, the world will only become more chaotic. People will do any ugly thing imaginable for a bite to eat. So, you absolutely must keep a low profile. Hearing Lu Mei's warning, Xiao Ran knew she had a clear grasp of the apocalypse and wouldn't become some bleeding heart. He chatted with Lu Mei a bit longer, then hung up. Time for bed. Xiao Ran woke up, leisurely brushed his teeth and washed his face, then called Baozi to go get breakfast. Instinctively, he pulled out his phone to scroll, but the no signal icon stared back at him. Only then did he remember. The network was completely down. Now, everyone was truly an island. He tossed his phone aside. It was only good for satellite calls now. No problem. I'll just watch TV then. He had prepared tons of portable hard drives, all packed with movies, TV series, and variety shows. Paired with the thousands of fully charged batteries he'd stockpiled, it would last him half a year, maybe even longer. After all, lighting barely used any power. The main power hog used to be the air conditioning, but now Xiao Ran was using the fireplace. Even his bathwater was heated by the fireplace, so the villa really didn't use much electricity per day. Around noon, Han Yun, Zhang Jingya, and Zhong Lei showed up right on time. Same as before, 1 hour, and Xiao Ran ruthlessly kicked the 3 women out. Stay the night at the villa? Not a chance. However, Xiao Ran did ask the 3 women to gather some intel. See if anything major was happening in the residential complex and report back to him daily. It couldn't be helped. With the internet completely down, the only way to get news was by word of mouth. It's like we've gone back to primitive society overnight. Xiao Ran mused. But aside from communications, he didn't seem too affected. He could still binge-watch shows, watch movies, and even play games. Right, games it is. He found one of the latest releases, quickly got the hang of it, and started playing. The game quality was good. Xiao Ran got so engrossed he practically forgot to eat or sleep, playing late into the night. He continued his quest to beat it the next day. His gaming binge only interrupted when Han Yun and the other 2 women arrived. He resumed gaming in the afternoon. That day, he played until 3 a.m. and finally beat it. Sweet. He crawled into bed and slept until past 10 the next morning, still nursing a bit of a headache. Man, gaming is addictive. Can't do that again. Xiao Ran admonished himself while preparing breakfast for himself and Baozi. After breakfast, he went up to the 3rd floor and leaned by the window to look outside. But a dense fog had rolled in, visibility down to just over a meter. What kind of view could he appreciate in this? However, he could faintly hear some commotion outside. At noon, Han Yun and the other 2 women appeared at the usual time. This time, however, Xiao Ran didn't immediately send them away. Instead, he asked if anything major had happened in the complex over the past 2 days. But the 3 women hardly dared to go out, so naturally, they hadn't gathered any useful information. So I forget it. Xiao Ran felt a bit frustrated. He really wasn't used to being offline. Still, the fact that no one had come to claim his bounty already spoke volumes. Zhang Kuan and Lu Bingxiang were still alive and kicking. So they're pretty tough to take down, huh? Xiao Ran wasn't too bothered. It wasn't like they could break into his villa. And in a direct confrontation, even if you multiplied the entire complex's population by 10, Xiao Ran could wipe them all out. If only I had a defensive superpower, then I could really run wild, Xiao Ran mused, a little regretfully. Han Yun and the other 2 women left. Xiao Ran had only been back upstairs for a short while when his phone's security system beeped. Someone was here. He checked the feed. It was actually Lin Lin, the wife of that loudmouth guy. He took a closer look and saw that the loudmouth himself was nowhere in sight on the approach. So what was this about? Xiao Ran went downstairs, opened the door, and let Lin Lin in. What are you here for? Xiao Ran asked. Lin Lin bit her lip. After a long moment, she said, I need food. Xiao Ran chuckled. When it came to filling an empty stomach, everyone had to swallow their pride. Help yourself. He placed a few dishes on the table, and Lin Lin immediately sat down and began to wolf down the food. Xiao Ran asked, Does your husband know you're here? Lin Lin stammered for a bit before finally saying, He knows. Xiao Ran couldn't help but raise an eyebrow. He knows and still let you come? So much for better starve than lose your honor. Looks like it's the other way around these days. Xiao Ran shook his head. Then a thought struck him. Did your husband mention anything to you about the current situation in the complex? Lin Lin hadn't expected Xiao Ran to ask such a question. She paused, then started to recall and speak. It was true. Neither Zhang Kuan nor Lu Bingxiang had been taken out. However, their situations were polar opposites. Some people had indeed tried to claim the bounty and attacked Zhang and Lu, but they were all fended off. However, Zhang Kuan's group was becoming increasingly fractured from within. It's easy to believe in a god, but when would this god come to save them? 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 4. As the wait dragged on, everyone grew impatient. So, their faith was likely to crumble within days. Who knows? Maybe in a few more, some believers would screw Zhang Kuan over spectacularly and then come to Xiao Ran to collect the reward. Lu Bingqing's situation, however, was completely different. His 4 bodyguards were fiercely loyal and formidable fighters, defeating all attackers. Moreover, Lu Bingqing used his pre-cataclysm status and his eloquence to persuade others, and now many had chosen to follow him. Now, Lu Bingqing's group had grown to over 20 people. And the key thing? These were all able-bodied men, not like Zhang Kuan's followers. A mixed bag whose actual combat strength was probably pathetically low. Lin Lin knew all this because her husband had also wanted to join Lu Bingqing's group. However, Lu Bingqing hadn't thought much of him and turned him away. This made her husband furious, and he spent a long time back in their room cursing Lu Bingqing out. Night fell. Xiao Ran was working out hard, drenched in sweat, when his phone's alarm blared. He stopped, picked up his phone, and took a look. Someone was here, knocking on the door. They were holding a phone, raised high, playing a video for the security camera. He couldn't see clearly, but he could vaguely make out some NSFW content. He went to the basement and remotely opened the door. Clank! The iron door swung open. The man at the door was stunned for a moment. Then he walked in, a look of shock instantly spreading across his face. There was light, which wasn't too surprising, but how was it so warm? He looked at Xiao Ran, his eyes flickering, possibly contemplating whether to attack and seize the place. However, he ultimately restrained himself. After all, Xiao Ran had a fearsome reputation. Here's the video you wanted, the man said, holding up his phone. Put it on the table, Xiao Ran said. The man walked over and put it down, but when he saw Xiao Ran didn't move, he couldn't help but ask, "Aren't you going to watch it? Aren't you going to step back?" Xiao Ran retorted, "You really are cautious." The man nodded and stepped aside. Xiao Ran smirked. "Truth is, I'm saving your life. Otherwise, I might have just put a bullet in you." He just wanted to avoid killing anyone in his home as much as possible. Cleaning up bloodstains was a hassle, after all. Xiao Ran walked over, picked up the phone, and started watching. It was indeed an NSFW video starring 2 men. One was Zhang Kuan, and the other was the man standing before him. "TSK, taking on a man, huh? You're a real brave soul," Xiao Ran mused. Xiao Ran nodded, tossed the phone back to the man, and said, "Wait outside. I'll bring the supplies down." "All right." The man backed out, and Xiao Ran closed the iron door. A short while later, the iron door opened again. The man walked in and saw several boxes of instant noodles and water on the floor, just as promised. He squatted down and began carrying the boxes of food and water out, one by one. However, he was extremely cautious, keeping an eye on Xiao Ran, as if fearing a sudden attack. Finally, he finished moving all the supplies. Thud! The iron door slammed shut at the same time. Xiao Ran couldn't care less about such a trivial amount of supplies. It wasn't even a drop in the bucket for him. Tarnish his reputation for this? Not worth it. But for Zhang Kuan to actually get taken from behind like that, what did that signify? His little cult had already fallen apart. Disasters were usually prime time for faith to gather followers. But at the same time, in the face of life and death, faith was also the easiest thing to crumble. Zhang Kuan had used faith to gather a large group, but he had no way to lead them out of their predicament. So, when faced with sufficient temptation, these people betrayed him without hesitation, even subjecting him to that violation. Xiao Ran shook his head. On the other hand, Lu Bingqing's situation was different. Not only had he not died from the bounty on his head, but his power and influence were actually growing. So, relying solely on deception and empty promises was definitely not a viable long-term strategy. One needed genuine strength and personal charisma to become a focal point, drawing others in like stars around the moon, to stand out and become a true leader, a king. And especially in an apocalyptic disaster like this, personal charisma played an even greater role, firmly uniting everyone. Because the more helpless people felt, the more they yearned for a leader to guide them out of their troubles. Undoubtedly, Liu Bingsheng had given these people hope. In other words, the terms I offered are no longer enough to make them rebel, he mused with a smile. Truth be told, he could still drastically increase the reward for the bounty. Even offering 100 or even 1,000 boxes of instant noodles would still be a pittance to him, but there was simply no need. I'm actually looking forward to the moment Liu Bingsheng attacks. Let them witness my true power. If you're to go all out, he would definitely eliminate all witnesses to keep his secret of possessing an interdimensional space ability safe. Even though communications were down, and it would be difficult for word to spread if anyone found out, Xiao Ran was still unwilling to take the risk. In such chaotic times, one could never be too careful. The Jang family. Jang Wan was making her final plea. If you just let me go, I'll be your woman from now on. It'll be natural for us to be together, and you won't have to pay anything anymore. Brother Kuan, I know you genuinely like me. Otherwise, you wouldn't have come to see me for 4 days straight. Trust me, if you help me, I'll never betray you. This Brother Kuan was a man around 40 years old, short in stature, and quite ugly, with dark skin. But in Jang Wan's eyes, he was now her only lifeline to escape her predicament. His full name was Liu Kuan. Liu Kuan, however, was still hesitant. No one would like me. I'm so ugly, and I don't have any money. Brother Kuan, do you want me to swear an oath? Jang Wan said anxiously. Help me get out of this, and I promise I'll keep my word. Everyone has betrayed me now. You're the only one who's been good to me. Who else would I follow if not you? Liu Kuan was already tempted, and hearing this, he hesitated no longer and untied Jang Wan. Jang Wan quickly put on her clothes. She had been hiding under the covers before, but now that she had to leave the bed, she would surely freeze to death if she didn't get dressed. It wasn't a matter of shame. Lying there, being used by men, what shame did she have left? Brother Kuan, when we go out, let's kill everyone out there, Jang Wan said chillingly. Liu Kuan was startled. But those people outside are all your relatives. But then he thought, wasn't Jang Wan their relative too? What kind of family ties up their own kin and sells them? So, it was understandable that Jang Wan hated them to the bone. He thought for a moment, then gritted his teeth. For you, I'm willing. Brother Kuan, you're so good to me. Jang Wan offered him a kiss, making Liu Kuan's dark face light up. Brother Kuan, you go out first and hide behind them. Then I'll open the door and come out to draw their attention. They'll definitely be shocked to see me. You take that chance to strike. Attack the 2 men first, Jang Wan instructed. She was quite clever, knowing that the men were the main combat strength. Once Zheng Yujun and Zheng Gang were dealt with, Lin Ming would be no threat at all. Liu Kuan nodded repeatedly. He opened the door and went out. Zheng Yujun glanced at him and said, You stayed too long. If it weren't for the fact you come every day, I'd have to charge you for another half hour. Liu Kuan didn't speak, just nodded. Zheng Yujun was used to his taciturn nature and didn't think much of it. But just then, the bedroom door opened again. He was shocked to see Jang Wan actually walking out. His face changed drastically. Just as he was about to speak, Liu Kuan swung an ashtray at him. Clang! Zheng Yujun was knocked unconscious. Just then, Zheng Gang reacted, but instead of attacking immediately, he shouted, Mom! Mom! Zheng Wan had long been fed up with this younger brother of hers. She immediately lunged forward, and Liu Kuan quickly followed. The 3 of them instantly became a tangled mess of fighting. When Lin Ming heard the commotion and ran out, she saw her daughter swinging a high-heeled shoe, smashing it viciously against her son's temple. No! Jang Wan paused deliberately, glanced at her mother. Then a cruel smile spread across her face as she struck with all her might. Thwack! The heel of her high-heeled shoe plunged deep into Zheng Gang's temple. A searing pain shot through him, causing him to struggle desperately, unleashing strength far beyond normal. He actually managed to break free. However, he swayed on his feet, as if drunk. Mom, why can't I stand steady? Zheng Gang mumbled. But no sooner had the words left his mouth than he collapsed with a thud. Dead. Zheng Gang. Lin Ming shrieked, jumping and screaming like a madwoman. Then, pointing straight at Jang Wan, she yelled, You venomous bitch. You actually killed your own brother with your own hands. Jang Wan sneered, picked up her other high-heeled shoe, and brought it crashing down on Zheng Yujun. Zheng Yujun was already unconscious. This blow didn't even elicit a struggle, just a twitch of his limbs before he breathed his last. Old man! Lin Ming shrieked again, staring at Jang Wan with eyes full of fear and resentment, wishing she could devour her whole. Jang Wan then said leisurely, Ever since we were little, You've always favored my brother. Anything good was always for him. Did you ever once consider my feelings? Haha. I even orchestrated the death of my own son, killing my brother and father? What's that in comparison? You. Lin Lin was utterly terrified, unable to utter a complete sentence. Seize her, Jang Wan said coldly. Lucan was obedient and immediately went over to grab Lin Lin. Only then did Lin Lin realize her daughter intended to kill her too. The will to survive instantly overrode everything else. She hastily said, Wan, I'm your mother. I've never harmed you. What happened to you before? That was your father's idea. It had absolutely nothing to do with me. Jang Wan burst into wild laughter, fetched a cleaver from the kitchen, and gestured with it above Lin Meiying's head. But did you try to stop them? No. What kind of mother watches her own daughter be forced into prostitution, toyed with by different men? You are not worthy. With that, she swung the cleaver down. Thunk! The cleaver bit into Lin Meiying's forehead. But Jang Wan, being a woman, had limited strength. The blade indeed cut in, but not deeply. The intense pain from the blow, however, galvanized Lin Meiying, giving her a burst of strength. She actually broke free from Lucan's grip and fled out the door. Lucan wanted to chase after her, but Jang Wan stopped him. Don't bother chasing. In her state, she won't live long anyway, Jang Wan said coldly. Oh. Lucan, lacking initiative, simply nodded. Jang Wan glanced at him, a hint of disdain in her eyes. Lucan's combat prowess was too weak. But for now, he was the only one she could use. What good would disdain do? I need more helpers, she thought. How to get them? Money was useless now. Not that she had any, and supplies were even scarcer. So how could she buy people's loyalty and make them serve her? Only with her body. She could, at least, be considered a 7 out of 10 beauty. Other women only know how to trade their bodies for supplies. But I'm different. I refuse to be someone else's plaything anymore. I will be a queen who controls the destinies of others. She waved her hand. Starting with Lucan, she would build an army within the residential complex that would obey her commands. What's the situation outside now? She asked Lucan. Lucan quickly recounted some of the major events that had occurred, leaving Jang Wan stunned and finding it hard to believe. Xiao Ran was actually that formidable, killing 20 or 30 people. Was it possible? Didn't she know what kind of person her ex-husband was? No, it seems she really didn't. After the divorce, he was like a completely different person. Why such a change? Jang Wan couldn't fathom it. However, Xiao Ran was still a lone wolf, having not established any faction. So selfish, not wanting to share his things with anyone. Jang Wan guessed. But that's good too. One person is much easier to deal with in a group. Many people hold grudges against Xiao Ran now. I'll gather these people first. No sooner said than done. She immediately went to find Zui Qiannan. This man had been publicly humiliated by Xiao Ran, and his wife had even been harassed by him. He would surely loathe Xiao Ran. She didn't yet know that Zui Qiannan had already tried to get revenge, but not only had he failed, his wife had ended up being played with by Xiao Ran. Knock, knock, knock. She rapped on Zui Qiannan's door. Who is it? Zui Qiannan asked, his tone unfriendly. He had food and water at home now and feared being robbed. It's Jang Wan. Jang Wan. Zui Qiannan was taken aback. Of course, he knew who Jang Wan was, but why would she come looking for him? I know you have a grudge against Xiao Ran. Don't you want revenge? Jang Wan said lightly. Click. The door opened. Come in and talk. Another day passed. The apocalypse had entered its 12th day. Xiao Ran picked up his phone and looked. June 12th. In his previous life, his death day would have been 3 days from now. But in this life, he was living an incredibly extravagant life. He ate whatever he wanted, drank whatever he wanted, had heating and hot water. If he wanted women, beauties would even deliver themselves to his door. He could have them one at a time, or in 2s, 3s, or 4s. How could this life even compare to his previous one? Life went on as usual. However, before noon, someone came running over. It was actually Lin Lin. So early today, Xiao Ran took a look, and seeing she was alone, he opened the iron gate and let her in. Xiao Ran, I have some news for you. Unexpectedly, Lin Lin didn't ask for food, but came straight out with this. Oh, what news? Xiao Ran asked casually. Lin Lin said, your ex-wife found my husband and pulled him into some anti-Xiao alliance aimed at dealing with you. Xiao Ran was taken aback. Jang Wan actually escaped? The last he'd heard, Jang Wan had been tied to a bed by her family and forced to receive clients. It hadn't even been that many days, had it? And this woman had already managed to break free? Lin Lin nodded. She seduced a client, who not only freed her, but also killed her parents and brother. Someone saw Lin Ming dead in the stairwell, a cleaver still embedded in her forehead. When she mentioned client, her face couldn't help but flush red because she wasn't much different from Jang Wan, was she? Weren't they both selling their bodies? Xiao Ran couldn't help but chuckle. He hadn't expected Jang Wan to be so capable, able to turn the tables even in that situation. As for this anti-Xiao alliance, Xiao Ran naturally couldn't care less. A bunch of rabble. If they dared to come looking for him, he'd finish them all off with a single spray of bullets, or perhaps suck them into his alternate dimension, saving quite a few bullets in the process. What's your husband's stance on this? Xiao Ran was curious about this. If Zue Qian Nan had really teamed up with Jang Wan, then Lin Lin's act of informing on them became rather interesting.